Chapter 102. In just half a minute or so, more than a dozen figures cried out at the same time. Like arrows, they shot out in all directions from the water ball. They tumbled and flew for more than 100 feet before stabilizing themselves and landing on the ground. Bang! At the same time, the water ball let out a muffled explosion and dissipated. The dozen figures all had lifeless expressions, as if they had been drained of their strength. Their faces were pale as they stared at the water ball that was no different from their surroundings. Zhao Yunfei, Fang Qing, Lu Yunfeng, and the 13 people from the other 3 kingdoms were all present. "Where's Chen Hao?" Fang Qing looked around and did not see Chen Hao's figure. She said in shock, "Could it be that he, choosing the inheritance of the remnants? How is this possible? That brat was only a mid-grade martial emperor. Why would it choose him?" A genius youth from the great Xian kingdom, who looked at most 15 years old but whose aura had clearly reached the martial emperor realm, said with an extremely ugly expression. This genius youth was called Yi Mingho. He was only 14 years old and was the 3rd prince of the great Xian kingdom. He was only a year older than Chen Hao. He started cultivating when he was 12 and became a martial emperor when he was 13. He became a martial emperor before he was 14. His cultivation talent and comprehension were rarely seen in 100 years. He was known as the #1 genius of the great Xian kingdom. Furthermore, he replaced his elder brother as the crown prince of the great Xian kingdom. Even Chen Hao could not be compared to him for the time being. The reason was very simple. Although Chen Hao had only cultivated for a little more than a year and became a rank 5 martial emperor and martial emperor were 2 different concepts. Even if Chen Hao was a rank 9 martial emperor, it could only be said that Chen Hao had hopes of surpassing Yi Mingho. Only when Chen Hao became a martial emperor would he be able to reach the same level. That was because the barrier from martial emperor to martial emperor could not be broken without extremely high comprehension and physical talent. Merely from the Royal New Show Hall, one could tell that Dongfang Jun, Bailey Yan and Zhuge Qingyun were already rank 9 martial monarchs when they entered the Royal New Show Hall. They were all first-rate geniuses. Yet, even after several months had passed, they still had not broken through to martial emperor. Even Dongfang Jun, who had been cleansed and reborn by a super expert and had no bottlenecks before becoming a martial saint, had only just begun his closed-door training to break through to the martial emperor realm. It was not certain when he would succeed. One could imagine how difficult it was to break through the bottleneck from the martial emperor realm to the martial emperor realm. Legacy selection. Crown Prince. Do you mean that kid entered the ruins? Impossible. Absolutely impossible. It must be because his cultivation was too low that he was killed by the water ball. How can my, Yi Mingho's, talent be compared to that brat? Humph. Even if he enters the ruins, he'll probably die of old age inside too. Is the inheritance so easy to obtain? Yi Mingho said with a gloomy expression. Although he said so, he knew in his heart that the kid might have really entered the ruins. The 4 youths beside Yun Mingho were also martial emperors. However, it was obvious that Yun Mingho was their core. Of course. How can our crown prince's talent and comprehension be compared to a puny martial emperor? Yes, yes. Crown Prince Mingho is a once-in-a-thousand-years genius. If that brat is really lucky enough to be chosen, he'll also die of old age inside. While Yi Mingho and the others were talking, many disciples from various countries arrived one after another. The hazy sky and the thick dark clouds began to dissipate quickly. The ancient aura of the ruins also disappeared. The originally dense fluctuation of heaven and earth spiritual qi also ceased to exist. Fang Qing, Zhao Yunfei, and the genius disciples from various countries also frowned deeply. Obviously, most of the disciples who came from powerful forces were very knowledgeable. They had already realized that Chen Hao might have entered the ruins. It was very likely that he would also obtain the inheritance of the ruins. More and more people gathered. Fang Qing's group, Zhao Yunfei's group, and the small groups from various countries were all discussing animatedly. From time to time, people would look at Fang Qing. Obviously, Chen Hao had become the center of everyone's discussion. As for Fang Qing, who had a good relationship with Chen Hao, she became the focus of everyone's attention. This situation lasted for more than 10 minutes before people chose to leave one after another. Once the inheritance of the ruins was entered in this way, only by truly obtaining the inheritance would one be able to open the entrance of the ruins and walk out. Otherwise, one would have to wait until the ruins collapsed and turn into ashes along with the ruins. True geniuses who had reached the martial emperor level like Yi Minghe and Zhao Yunfei were of course not afraid. However, Chen Hao was only a martial emperor. Whether Chen Hao could successfully comprehend the power of the inheritance and walk out of the ruins was indeed a problem. Half a day later, the mission ended prematurely due to the changes in the ruins. Fang Qing and the others did not waste any message talismans. Instead, they chose to rush back to the Royal New Show Hall as quickly as possible. There was no way to rush this matter. Chen Hao had entered for at least 2 months, or even more than half a year. He might never come out. No one knew that Chen Hao was not the only one who had entered the ruins. In the ruins. Crack. Hiss, a thunderbolt exploded in the distance. Countless flashes of lightning flickered, but the strange thing was that the color of the thunderbolt was extremely mellow white. It was completely unlike the blue electric light of a real thunderbolt. Chen Hao felt as if he was in the clouds, but also as if he was floating in the water. That thunderbolt was very far away, but Chen Hao felt waves of numbness all over his body. Chen Hao was extremely shocked. His eyes were wide open as he stared at this strange space. There was no sky or earth. His entire body was covered in a vast expanse of whiteness. He was actually quietly suspended in the void. It was obviously air, but this air was viscous like liquid. It was like a white sticky substance, but miraculously, there was no feeling of suffocation. This was a type of energy that Chen Hao could not understand at all. When he inhaled, he could clearly feel it entering his body like water waves. When he exhaled, it was completely exhaled. There was actually not a trace of it that could be absorbed. Chen Hao could clearly feel the strength of this energy. He activated his mental power and origin power to the extreme, but after this gas sank into his dantian, he could not refine it at all. Kacha, what the hell is this place? What kind of energy is this? When that strange thunderbolt erupted again, Chen Hao asked in his mind in shock. But, what puzzled Chen Hao was that the treasure-hunting sword spirit did not respond at all. There was not even a trace of fluctuation in its mind. It was clearly communicating with him just now, telling him that the soul-piercing pain was a test for the inheritance of the ruins to choose the person with the opportunity. As long as he passed, he would be able to enter the ruins. But why was it so silent now? Chen Hao shouted several times in his mind, but there was still no response, which made him extremely depressed. It became a coward at the crucial moment. Motherfucker. Chen Hao could not help but curse, and he secretly hated himself for being inexperienced. Otherwise, it would be impossible for him to be ignorant of the current strange situation. Chen Hao did not know that at this moment, the treasure-hunting sword spirit was terrified to the extreme. Before entering the ruins, it was still excited. As long as Chen Hao could enter, he would definitely have a good harvest. It had already released its perception to its heart's content, and it was ready to help Chen Hao do a great job. Chen Hao was quite loyal to his friends when he obtained the harvest from the Xuanhuan treasury last time. He did not embezzle the military pay. It was much better than its previous master. Of course, it had to do its best, but what it did not expect was that because of its excitement and unreserved release, it almost lost its life. Spirit, the so-called sword spirit, saber spirit, or any weapon spirit, was a spiritual existence that could only be born after the cultivator's long-term telepathy with the weapon. It was different from the souls of humans, demon beasts, and other life forms. They were only a condensed consciousness, an object of extreme Yin, also known as a Yin spirit. The treasure-hunting sword spirit was such an existence. If its original body, which was the treasure sword, still existed, it was nothing. Because that was the place it protected and lived. It was equivalent to the physical body where the human soul hid. But now, it did not have a physical body at all. It was just a Yin spirit, and it lived in Chen Hao's mind. And when it fully released this aura, it happened to meet its nemesis, pure Yang vital essence. Chen Hao quickly calmed down, his eyes shining with a bright light as he carefully looked around. His perception had been completely confined to half a meter around him. Just as Chen Hao was looking around, there was a sudden fluctuation in front of him. A hazy and illusory door appeared in front of him. On one side of the door, there was a milky white stone tablet suspended in the air. On the stone tablet, there were faintly flickering words. Chen Hao didn't even think about it and quickly approached. 9 Revolving Heavenly Sun Technique. After Chen Hao saw the words on the stone tablet, his pupils shrank as he read it out loud. 9 Revolving Earth Yin Technique. A light, slightly immature, like the voice of a young girl, almost at the same time as Chen Hao, sounded from the other side of the space of the ruins. Such a dense and pure Yin remnant, I'm afraid that even father can't condense it. At least grandfather can. He. Grandfather said that Yu has the 9 Yin absolute meridians. This 9 revolving earth Yin technique will definitely be very suitable for Yu. The young girl's pair of beautiful eyes smiled sweetly as she said. This young girl looked to be 16 or 17 years old. Her body was curvaceous and incomparably graceful, like a fresh flower that had just ripened. A little more would be more enchanting, and a little less would make her seem slightly immature. And that small face was even more so. Her brows were picturesque, perfect to the point that there were no flaws, but the girl's clear eyes were filled with childlike innocence, like the eyes of a baby, extremely pure. It was completely incompatible with her figure and clothes. Anyone who saw this pair of eyes would probably have a tender heart. The young girl's left hand was wearing a sparkling purple bracelet. Within the bracelet, there was a faint ball of purple qi flowing, as if it was a living thing. If Chen Hao saw it, he would naturally not recognize it. Even some of the upper echelons of the Royal New Show Hall would not recognize it. But special people like Huang Qi would definitely be incomparably shocked. Purple Crystal Jade Essence. The purple crystal jade essence that had endless benefits for cultivators. Even if the purple crystal jade essence had not been condensed by any expert, it was still priceless. And the young girl's bracelet clearly contained extremely powerful runes, making it even more immeasurable. Just the storage space alone was countless times greater than that of a high-grade storage ring, not to mention the various wonderful uses it contained. Third update. Dark Mountain is writing at the speed of a tortoise, unable to achieve a burst of 4 or 5 chapters. Without a stockpile of chapters, this is pretty much Dark Mountain's limit. From yesterday until now, I've slept for a total of 5 hours. Tomorrow morning, the update might be late. If you have monthly votes, please support Dark Mountain. Thank you. Chapter 103. Clear sky is Yang, heavy earth qi is Yin. Chen Hao and the young girl spoke at the same time. Move, fire, light, thunder, day, man, life, sun, heaven, are the 9 suns, still, water, darkness, rain, snow, night, woman, death, moon, earth, are the 9 Yin, 9 revolving heavenly sun secret art, first revolution, Yang birth, 9 revolving earth Yin secret art, first revolution, calm heart, birth of Yin. Chen Hao and the young girl read the first revolution of the secret art almost at the same time, as well as the scene they would face after entering the door. Their hearts were like a mirror. Walking through the hazy door, the two stepped into their respective palaces. One was a space formed by pure white Yang Yuan stones, the other was a space formed by pure black Yin Yuan stones. Chen Hao looked at the wall. It was also at this moment that the surrounding aura suddenly surged and condensed into a wisp of extremely pure light. Like a brush, it floated to the wall in front of Chen Hao. Then, a thin line gradually gave birth to a figure at an astonishing speed, as if it was drawing a painting. When this figure with a strange posture completely appeared in front of Chen Hao's eyes suddenly widened, his mind surging. Shoo! Chen Hao sucked in a breath of cold air, extremely shocked as he said, "What a beautiful girl." Fortunately, it's just a person in the painting. If there really was such a girl in the world, what would happen? I'm afraid even this inheritance of the ruins is really interesting, to use this beautiful girl to mess up my state of mind. If it was a real person, I'm afraid I would really be a little confused, but it's just an illusory figure. Chen Hao's deep black eyes shone with rays of light, his voice clear and bright as he said. But although he said so, Chen Hao's gaze was still fixed on the lifelike young girl in the painting. Her eyebrows were distant, her eyes were clear, and her figure was graceful, especially those eyes. Even if it was just a painting, it had already caused ripples in Chen Hao's calm heart. This was a phenomenon that had never happened in the past. The two of them did not have it, and the current him also did not have it. But now it was real. Humph! Chen Hao coldly snorted and took a deep breath. In his mind, he decisively swung his sword and cut off the ripples in his heart. Relying on his rock-solid willpower and temperament, he instantly adjusted himself to a state of complete focus. The first mantra of the 9 Revolutions Heavenly Sun technique that he had just seen appeared in his mind. His eyes shot out like lightning and suddenly stared straight into the girl's eyes. Boom! When his eyes met those lifelike and beautiful eyes, a mysterious aura suddenly erupted from the girl's eyes, turning into 2 beams of light that connected with Chen Hao's eyes. At the same time, Chen Hao's eyes became sluggish for a moment, as if he had fallen into a strange realm. Immediately after, a beautiful and graceful figure appeared in his mind. In his mind, a set of fist techniques appeared. According to the inscription, it was a body technique. Hi! Chen Hao almost lost control of his mind. Fortunately, he was mentally prepared since long ago, and he suddenly exploded out with a loud shout. He moved according to his heart's desire, imitating the peerless figure in his mind as he moved about, punched, and kicked. 1 time, 2 times, 3 times, sweat dripped down like rain and he panted like an ox, but Chen Hao clenched his teeth and completely immersed himself in this powerful body technique. Chen Hao was very clear that this was the inheritance of the ruins. The first style of the 9 Revolutions Heavenly Sun technique was only the beginning. Only by using all his strength to comprehend and break through would he be able to quickly obtain the inheritance and leave the ruins. In the beginning, Chen Hao's body was always half a beat away from the image in his mind. His dancing figure also had a lot of jerkiness and sluggishness, but as time passed, Chen Hao's figure gradually became one with the image in his mind, achieving the state of body and mind as one. After a full 6 hours, Chen Hao's body and mind as one had reached the state of body and mind as one, forgetting the body technique in his mind, forgetting that he was dancing along with it. A faintly discernible mysterious aura gradually emitted from Chen Hao's body. Chen Hao did not have any consciousness at all. After finishing the last round, he naturally stopped. The image in his mind disappeared, but Chen Hao was completely exhausted. With a plop, he lay on the ground with his limbs facing the sky, staring at the image of the young girl that was slowly disappearing on the wall. When the first image of the young girl disappeared, the mysterious brush began once again. It was still that beautiful girl, but in a completely different posture. Chen Hao knew that he had already passed the first style, and now it was time for the second style. It's the hateful meditation again, Yu doesn't like it. The young girl's pink and attractive cherry lips pouted. Looking at the wall in front of her, she said, "If I had known, I wouldn't have come in. But you can't go out." If too much time passes and father and grandfather find out that Yu sneaked out, that would be bad. After the young girl walked through the door, she said with a hint of coquettishness. Obviously, this young girl did not take the ruins seriously at all. She came in because she thought it was fun, but after coming in, she had to practice the most hateful meditation, so she was not happy. But the young girl was very clear that if she wanted to leave the ruins, she had to master the 9 revolutions Earth-in formula. Otherwise, even she would not be able to leave the ruins. Hiss hiss, at this time, there was a fluctuation in the air. Like Chen Hao, the same scene appeared in front of the young girl. Huh! The young girl suddenly opened her clear and beautiful eyes wide in surprise. A figure slowly appeared in front of the young girl. His figure was not tall, but he was very handsome. Especially his eyes, they were as bright as stars, emitting a sense of disdain and arrogance that came from the depths of his bones. He was obviously not old, but his eyes made the young girl's heart tremble. He's the owner of the ruins. So handsome. He doesn't look as old as Yu, but he seems very powerful. Grandfather said that Yu is a cultivation genius that only appears once in 1,000 years, but Yu is only a 9th-grade martial saint. The gap between us is so big. Grandfather must be trying to make Yu happy. Yu needs to quickly cultivate. Since you are the owner of the ruins, don't make things difficult for Yu. Quickly let Yu master it, or else grandfather and father will scold Yu. The young girl stared at the young man on the wall and said innocently. As she spoke, she slowly sat cross-legged in front of the portrait. The first cycle of the 9 revolutions Earth-in formula appeared in her mind, and she stared at the eyes of the portrait. One moving, one still. They started at the 2 ends of the ruins. Neither of them knew of the other's existence, and they did not know that the portrait they were looking at was the other. But they had the same goal, which was to quickly obtain the inheritance of the ruins and leave the ruins. It had to be said that the super expert who left behind the inheritance of the ruins had great abilities and wisdom that ordinary people could not imagine. He did not miss any details, even the portrait they saw was replaced with the other's figure. Bang! 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 At the edge of the Magic Cloud Mountain range, origin power and mental energy crisscrossed as hundreds of figures fought together. Zhao Yunfei, Fang Qing, Lu Yunfeng and the others were among them. Their faces were filled with anger as they fought and retreated. Rumble! A terrifying explosion suddenly exploded in the void. Zhao Yunfei's figure was immediately pushed back, and a mouthful of blood spurted out from his mouth. Ha ha ha! The number 1 new disciple of the Jin Yuan kingdom is only a so-so. Mingho, what are you doing? Fang Qing furiously urged her mental energy to catch the seriously injured Zhao Yunfei and said angrily. After the aura of the ruins disappeared, everyone knew that the mission had ended early due to the changes in the ruins, and they returned. But they did not expect that when they reached the edge of the Magic Cloud Mountain range, they were stopped by Mingho and the others of the Deqian kingdom. Both sides were proud geniuses, and the flames of war were about to be triggered. What am I doing? This crown prince has already said that this is only a warm-up before the new talent ranking battle. It's that kid's fault for ruining this crown prince's plans. Ha ha ha. Let's go. Now that we've beaten up the younger ones, the older ones will be here soon. They're not people we can deal with. Mingho. Just you wait, Zhao Yunfei, will definitely avenge today's humiliation in the new talent ranking battle 1.5 years later. Save it, this crown prince has only just stepped into the martial emperor realm, and you're already no match for me. During the new talent ranking battle, you're not even fit to carry my shoes. Mingho, want to be number 1. Why don't you go back and tell the advanced disciples of the new show hall that they're called Dongfang Jian, by Lishi, Zhao Yunlong. Oh, Zhao Yunlong should be your elder brother, right? This crown prince, Mingho, will defeat them and the advanced disciples of the other kingdoms and ascend to the top of the new talent ranking battle of the 8 kingdoms. Ha ha ha. As Mingho spoke, his body turned into a strand of lightning. He brought the great Qian kingdom's disciples and rapidly returned to his own kingdom. Only his domineering and insufferably arrogant voice could be heard. This time around, there were a total of 50+ disciples from the Jianyuan kingdom's new show hall. At this moment, all of them had extremely humiliated expressions on their faces. Countless of them were injured, and several of them were seriously injured. It could be said that they were completely suppressed by the great Qian kingdom. If it wasn't for the fact that they had a transmission talisman to notify the experts of the new show hall, it was likely that they would not only be seriously injured. There was blood at the corner of Zhao Yunfei's mouth. He was tightly clenching his teeth and his eyes were spitting out flames. Before he entered the royal new show hall, he had already been a martial emperor for half a year. Now, an entire year had passed. He had already reached the peak of rank 1 martial emperor. However, Mingho, who had clearly just become a rank 1 martial emperor, had actually defeated him in a berserk manner. There was still a year and a half before the biennial new talent ranking battle of the 8 kingdoms. Although Zhao Yunfei was a newly advanced disciple, he was already the number 1 expert among the initial disciples. He believed that during the new talent ranking battle, he would definitely be able to obtain a good ranking. At the very least, he would definitely be able to reach the peak among the initial disciples. This was already a very high goal. After all, within the 8 kingdoms, the Jianyuan kingdom's strength was only average, or even slightly below average. However, he never expected that Mingho would actually be so arrogant as to aim for the top of the new talent ranking battle. Roar, the humiliated Zhao Yunfei's heart of an expert was not destroyed by Mingho. Instead, he faced the sky and let out a furious roar. His body suddenly turned into a ray of light and flew toward the depths of the Demon Cloud Mountain range. What I've done today, I will definitely return it 100-fold in the future. What? Chen Hao might have entered the remnants. After Mingho and the others left, after Zhao Yunfei left in humiliation, Fang Qing, who had clearly displayed her astonishing strength in the battle earlier, became the core of the crowd. Together, they returned to the royal new show hall. In less than 4 hours, the expert that had rushed over to the royal new show hall was actually Huang Qi, the gatekeeper uncle. Furthermore, he was the only one. When Huang Qi heard what Fang Qing had said, he immediately spoke in shock. P.S. First update. I'm not sure what time the next update will be. Wuxian has finished writing one chapter after another. Not aiming high, giving himself pressure. This time, Wuxian will do his best. Friends with monthly votes, please vote for Wuxian. Give Wuxian some encouragement and passion. Thank you. Chapter 104. Beginning to work hard on the 3rd update, seeking monthly votes and subscriptions for support, thank you. Thank you for yesterday's Mo Chini 5664, Lone Star and Moon 4364, Passionate Love 588, Chuanliang Wuzi 588, Rosy Cheeks 588, Newbie Post 588, Phone by 100, Forever Unchanged Me 100, Demon King's Tears, Oxjun, Book Linfei, Dream is already dead, for their support. Thank you. Half a month later. Yang was born when the body moved, Yin was born when the heart was still. Chen Hao and the young girl were cultivating at 2 different places. One was still and the other was moving. Although the 2 of them did not have the slightest connection, but their cultivation seemed to be inextricably linked and involved. They actually completed the first revolution at the same time without a difference of a second. A hazy and illusory door appeared on the wall. At the same time, the second revolution of the 9 Heavenly Sun technique and the 9 Earth Yin technique appeared. After the 2 of them looked at the mantras, they stepped through the door at the same time. After entering the strange room, the other person's image appeared on the wall again. The image was sitting cross-legged with a spirited gaze. They did not know if it was an illusion, but the two of them felt that the other person was staring at them. This feeling came from the subconscious. It was like looking through time and space. Looking back for 100 years, meeting for 1,000 years. In the other person's eyes, they could see the depths of the other person's soul. Xianxia was shocked by the purity of the pair of eyes. He saw an extremely pure soul. He saw the girl's innocence and every frown and smile of the girl. The girl could see more from the young man's firm and cold eyes. It was an unyielding soul, a young man who looked down on the world and looked down on the common people. He seemed emotionless, but she could feel the warmth and gentleness in the depths of his eyes that were deliberately sealed in ice. The shock in the girl's heart was not something that Xianxia could compare to. The joy in her heart was also not something that Xianxia could understand. The slightly childish but extremely intelligent girl stared at the pair of eyes and actually laughed out. It was as if she had discovered the secret hidden in the depths of the other person's heart. She muttered, "You can't hide it from Yu. Yu understands you." Seeing that Yu understands you, quickly let Yu comprehend it, he. When the two of them seemed to have telepathy, they sat down cross-legged facing the image at the same time. When they fused the second revolution of the mantras, their eyes emitted a light and connected with each other's image. Boom boom, voila, on one side, he felt as if he was in a sea of fire, the raging flames burning all over his body. On the other side, he was drowned by a bone-chilling flood. Xianxia felt as if he was being burned by a raging fire, while the girl felt as if she was being invaded by ice water. One fire, one water. Time passed slowly. Magic Cloud Mountain Range, where the entrance to the relic appeared. 3 figures stood there. The 3 people were Huang Qi, Helian Wuxi, and Mo Yui. It's been 2 months. Let's go. Huang Qi said, the new show hall's year-end ranking competition is about to begin. You too must participate. Uncle Emperor, can he still come out? In merely 2 months' time, the aura around Helian Wuxi's body clearly had a shocking increase. Even if she didn't deliberately release it, her entire body was enveloped in a hazy icy aura. Her entire person seemed to be situated within a faint mist, giving people a kind of faintly discernible feeling. Coupled with her exquisite and mature figure and beautiful little face, she was like a fairy that had descended to the mortal world and could ascend at any time. But at this moment, her brows were deeply furrowed, and she asked with a trace of worry. Boss will definitely come out. Mo Yui's expression was cold, and his voice was as sharp as a sword. Of course. Huang Qi also said with extreme certainty. That kid's physical aptitude and comprehension are all first-rate. Since this relic has chosen him, old man believes that he will naturally be able to come out. It's just a matter of time. At most. How long? Last time you said 1 month, then it became 2 months. Now it's already been 2 months. Are you going to say 3 months? What made Huang Qi's old face turn red was that Helian Wuxi's ethereal and cold voice actually said so. Cough cough. Little Wu, although old man knows that he will definitely come out, but as for what kind of relic this relic is and what kind of inheritance it has, old man has no way to judge. You only need to know one thing. The later he comes out, the more powerful the inheritance of this relic is. Once he comes out, his strength will also have an astonishing increase. What you and little Mo have to do is not to wait, but to do your best to cultivate. This is also the reason why old man forced you to complete the mission in these 2 months. Otherwise, when he walks to the next level, he'll leave all of you far behind. In the end, he'll become a person of 2 different worlds. Huang Qi had always been frivolous, but this time, there was a rare solemn expression on his old face. Hearing Huang Qi's words, Helian Wuxi and Mo Yui's expressions were different, but their eyes shone with a trace of light. When Helian Wuxi and Mo Yui learned that Xianxia had stepped into the relic and did not know how long it would take, or whether he would be able to come out, they stubbornly walked out of the royal new show hall and went to the place where the entrance to the relic had appeared. Fortunately, with Huang Qi, the two did not delay their cultivation. Almost every day, they hunted demonic beasts in the Demon Cloud Mountain range or meditated beside Huang Qi. When Huang Qi, this old man, was waiting for Chen Hao, he became the bodyguard, sparring partner, and instructor of the two. This was something that no one expected. Even Huang Qi did not expect it. Huang Qi was the gatekeeper uncle of the new show hall. Although he had a special identity, and in the new show hall, even the hall master and vice hall master would not care about him, that was after all his duty. But this time, after the new show hall received the news that Chen Hao might have entered the relic, he applied to go and take a look. But he did not expect that the hall master and vice hall master would let him guard Chen Hao so easily. When did the hall master and vice hall master care so much about Chen Hao? It was also because of this that the three of them formed the current team. So, in this year's end-of-year competition, all of you have to work hard for me and get good results. Otherwise, if old man's guess is not wrong, when that kid comes out, he will definitely scold all of you. Mou's expression changed, as if there was a lingering fear in his heart. It was obvious that Chen Hao had left a shadow in his heart after more than a month of special training for him and Helian Wuzi. But Helian Wuzi's face instantly flushed red. Scolding? If only it was as simple as scolding. I believe that with your current strength, entering the top 20 shouldn't be a problem. Xiao Wu has already comprehended the three types of energy of water, ice, and mist. That is to say, she has completely comprehended the basic and derivative properties of the water attribute. Although she is still unable to display the true power of these three types of energy, as long as she uses them properly, her battle strength can increase by several times. It is even possible to enter the top 10. Little Mo is also not bad. You have actually comprehended the metal attribute, which complements your sword intent. As long as you maintain an incomparably sharp heart, entering the top 20 will not be a problem. In the last few days, if you can break through to 7th stage Martial Emperor, your ranking may be even higher. Huang Qi said. At this moment, Helian Wuzi and Moue had already stepped into 6th stage Martial Emperor under the special training of the super instructor, Huang Qi. Even Huang Qi was a little surprised by this speed of improvement. Of course, after Huang Qi saw the two's desperate cultivation method, he also understood. Even he could not help but admire Chen Hao, who was only 13 years old. I will enter the top 10. Helian Wuzi said coldly. Me too. Moue also said. Let's go. Huang Qi waved his hand, and two boundless mental energy enveloped Helian Wuzi and Moue. The three figures immediately soared into the sky and disappeared in the blink of an eye. After flying for a few miles, Huang Qi turned his head and stared at the place where he originally stood. He muttered, "This damned place is full of strangeness. I keep feeling that someone is watching." Not long after Huang Qi and the others left, two figures strangely appeared at the place where the entrance of the remnant appeared. We can basically be sure that young Miss is in this remnant. One of them said. Senior, I don't think so. What do you mean? With young Miss's talent and comprehension, how could this kind of low-level remnant take 2 months? Moreover, young Miss is already a 9th stage martial saint, a super genius who is only one step away from stepping into the martial god realm. I really don't understand, in this kind of place, what kind of remnant can stump young Miss. What you said makes sense. But don't forget, there are many experts with strange characters in this world. It is not impossible for a high-level remnant to be left in this place. Oh. If young Miss is really in this remnant, then it will be fine. If something unexpected happens, unexpected? Who in this world dares to touch young Miss? Moreover, young Miss sneaked out. Even the sect master doesn't know, so it is even more impossible for the opposing forces to know. With young Miss's cultivation of a 9th stage martial saint, do you think young Miss will encounter danger in this kind of place? Senior is right. However, I still have some doubts. The old man who has been guarding here for 2 months should be able to confirm that one of their disciples has entered the remnant. However, under normal circumstances, the inheritance of a remnant will choose one person. If young Miss enters, there will be 2. How is this possible? That's because you're ignorant. Under normal circumstances, the inheritance of a remnant will indeed be one person. However, that is because it is very difficult to meet 2 people at the same time. The other person who entered the remnant will definitely meet the requirements. As for our young Miss, is there a remnant that does not meet the requirements? It is not a big deal to enter at the same time. Don't worry too much. In the end, the one who obtains the inheritance of the remnant will definitely be young Mississippi. The one who enters is just an ant in front of young Miss. He should not die. With young Miss's temperament, she will definitely bring him out. Then we will just wait here. Of course. We are not the only ones who came out to look for young Mississippi. Anyway, we have already received the approval of the sect master. We don't need to participate in the year-end test to obtain the benefits of a second-stage disciple. This is a good thing. If we can bring young Miss back, the reward will be even higher, haha. The 2 looked to be around 30 years old. They were both dressed in green and had a mysterious rune mark on their chests. It seemed to be the symbol of a sect. Although the 2 restrained their aura and looked like ordinary people. However, the light that occasionally flashed in their eyes was as bright as the stars. If Huang Qi saw the symbol on their chests, he would definitely be extremely shocked. Unfortunately, Huang Qi, who was considered an expert in the Jinyuan kingdom, did not notice the 2 of them staying nearby for 2 months. It was only his subconscious intuition that he felt that someone was watching. 2 months later, light versus darkness. 4 months later, lightning versus rain and snow. 7 months later, day versus night. 10 months passed in a hurry. The 2 of them successfully cultivated the 5th revolution at the same time. Stepping into the 6th revolution, male and female. P.S. Today's monthly votes are only 2 or 3. Have pity on Wuxian. Brothers and sisters with monthly votes, please support them. Thank you very much. Wuxian will work hard to go to the 3rd update. Please. Chapter 105. 5th Revolution, 10 months, Chen Hao's body was filled with a surging and vigorous energy. 10 months of bitter cultivation, especially the 4th layer of lightning, had caused his already strong physical body to feel as if it had been cleansed and reborn. Even if he did not use any origin power or spirit power, Chen Hao was confident that he could defeat a rank 7 martial monarch with just the strength of his physical body. His muscles were not majestic. They were streamlined and filled with beauty. However, as long as he used a bit of strength, his muscles would naturally condense into one, condensing all of his strength into a single point. Other than his physical body becoming stronger, Chen Hao had also reached rank 9 martial monarch. Intent and martial monarch were both at the peak of rank 9 martial monarch. 5 new meridians appeared in his body. With every breath he took, he could absorb a large amount of spiritual energy. At this moment, if he were to face Zhao Yunfei, a rank 1 martial monarch, Chen Hao was 100% confident that he could defeat him. However, even after the 5th revolution, Chen Hao was still unable to step into martial monarch. This also made Chen Hao understand how difficult it was to break the barrier from martial monarch to martial monarch. After 10 whole months, when Chen Hao saw the hazy door of the 6th revolution male and the chant of the cultivation method, his heart was burning with anxiety. What did 10 months mean? He had already missed the year-end competition. This was not important. However, what about Helian Wuzi and Moue? The former Chen Hao had a cold and emotionless appearance. In his entire life, he did not have a true friend. No one could enter his heart. Perhaps because of the influence of the former him, although the current Chen Hao was a brand new Chen Hao, a Chen Hao with two souls that had truly merged, he still maintained the necessary caution and indifference. Perhaps because of this caution, he especially cherished the people he acknowledged. Helian Wuxi and Imoyui were, he was very worried about their current situation, especially the femme fatale Helian Wuxi. Huff, Chen Hao let out a long breath. He completely suppressed the anxiety in his heart and instantly regained his calmness. Being anxious was useless. Only by calming his heart and completely immersing himself in his cultivation would he be able to leave the ruins as soon as possible. Slowly looking at the inscription, Chen Hao murmured, "Yang alone does not give birth. Man is the spirit of all things. Male yang versus female yang. Illusion and reality, truth and falsehood. With yin and yang, one can perceive life and death, comprehend the sun and moon, and transcend heaven and earth. Solitary yin does not last. Man is the spirit of all living things. As for the male yang, false and real, true and false. Only when there is yang and yin can one comprehend life and death, achieve the same brilliance as the sun and the moon, and transcend heaven and earth." The young girl's clear eyes stared at the inscription in front of her as she murmured. On her beautiful little face, her eyebrows were slightly furrowed. She actually seemed to understand the Heart Sutra of over 1,000 words. In particular, the description of the cultivation scene made her feel extremely strange. False and real, true and false. Chen Hao was also frowning in contemplation. He seemed to understand, could it be that the image materializes so that I can perceive the yin and yang? Thinking of the beautiful and lovable figure, Chen Hao's mind shook slightly, but he immediately suppressed it. After making sure that the 1,000-word Heart Sutra was firmly engraved in his mind, Chen Hao took a step towards the hazy and illusory door. Following the cultivation steps of the Heart Sutra, Chen Hao came to the front of the wall and sat down cross-legged. He slowly extended his palms and placed them on the wall. Activating the 5 strange meridians formed from the first 5 transformations of the 9 revolutions heavenly sun technique, the fiery pure yang energy suddenly surged out like a river. Almost at the same time, the young girl also sat cross-legged in front of the wall and activated her 5 meridians. The icy cold pure yin energy also surged out from the young girl's palms. Kacha 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 kacha. The hard and thick wall made of an unknown material suddenly began to crack rapidly at this moment. The crack spread like a spider web. Boom! With a loud sound, debris flew everywhere. Almost at the same time, Chen Hao and the young girl's eyes shrank at the same time. A very clear touch appeared between their palms. Staring at the incomparably realistic image, both of their hearts trembled, but soon their eyes regained their calmness. Their respective Heart Sutras appeared in their minds at the same time, suppressing the shock in their hearts. The young girl felt the fiery palm. Although she quickly entered the cultivation state with her powerful cultivation talent, the shock in her heart could not be eliminated. It was too real. She really saw the owner of the ruins. Not only did she see it, she also touched it. Her keen sense of smell could even clearly smell the male scent on the other party. Chen Hao also relied on his tenacious state of mind to enter the cultivation state in an instant. Like the young girl, although he entered the cultivation state, the shock in his heart was indescribable. The icy cold and soft palms were placed on top of his palms. The faint fragrance of a virgin could be clearly smelled. The incomparably clear pair of eyes, the devastatingly beautiful face, the graceful and exquisite body, was sitting cross-legged in front of him. It was too real, so real that it made Chen Hao gasp in amazement. The moment their eyes met, Chen Hao could clearly see the shock in the pair of eyes. Pooh! But at the same time, Chen Hao originally thought that he was strong enough to slap iron into a pancake. But the moment the image in front of him was immersed in cultivation, an icy cold pure yin energy quickly submerged his body like a flash flood. At this moment, Chen Hao felt that he was so weak that he could not withstand a single blow. Before he could react, his internal organs were shaken to the point of rupturing. With a sweet taste in his throat, a mouthful of essence blood was directly sprayed onto the young girl's flawless face. Ah! Feeling the change, the young girl suddenly screamed. Out of a natural reaction, an incomparably powerful energy shield suddenly gushed out from her body. Bang! Chen Hao, who was already seriously injured in an instant, flew out like a kite with a broken string under the fluctuation of the young girl's energy without any suspense. He heavily hit the wall behind him. The moment Chen Hao lost consciousness, his eyes stared at the young girl who seemed to be extremely shocked and at a loss. If the owner of the ruins was present, he would definitely vomit blood in anger. The perfect inheritance they had set up could be said to have no weaknesses. They even believed that as long as the man and woman who passed the restriction test entered the ruins, it could be said that they would be able to obtain their inheritance with 100% certainty. Comprehending the mysteries of yin and yang and transcending the restrictions of heaven and earth. However, he had not expected that Chen Hao would be a fake among the two people he had chosen. Comprehending the energy of the 5 elements and operating the 5 elements was one of the conditions. Judging the age from the breath of life was the second condition. These 2 conditions were enough to confirm that the selected person was absolutely a true genius. The young girl did completely meet the conditions, but Chen Hao, his age did meet the conditions. Comprehending the energy of the 5 elements and operating the 5 elements also met the conditions. But this guy only had this ability because he had obtained the 5 elements spiritual root. He was not a real martial sage. A small martial emperor and a martial sage fused their energy to comprehend yin and yang. What kind of concept was that? Martial emperor, martial great master, martial sage. Across a few streets, the gap was really too big. This directly caused Chen Hao to vomit blood and be seriously injured, and he was sent flying by the young girl. Hey! The young girl looked at the unconscious Chen Hao whose breath of life was extremely weak. Her small face turned pale, and her mind was in a mess. She really did not understand. Wasn't this an image? Wasn't this the owner of the ruins? The incantation clearly said that as long as she fused with the pure yang energy of the image, she would be able to comprehend the existence of yang and yin. Then she would be able to break through the 6th transformation and comprehend life and death. But now, the bloodstains that were shaken off by her energy were clearly visible. The owner of the ruins, that she had looked at for 10 whole months and was extremely familiar with, was really in front of her eyes. Even when she was no longer operating the 9 revolutions Earth Yin incantation, he was still in front of her eyes. Was this still an illusion? Was it still an image? Hey! Are you hurt? Wake up. You didn't do it on purpose. The young girl had never hurt anyone. It was simply inconceivable that she could have this kind of cultivation that Chen Hao completely defied the natural order. There were no cruel hunts, no life and death trials, and she had not really experienced many battles. Only during the great sect competition would she act. She had completely relied on her astonishing talent and comprehension. Oh no, his breathing and heartbeat have stopped. His internal organs have all been shattered. The young girl said in panic. After a slight pause, the young girl's body suddenly flashed with a bright green light. She lifted the unconscious Chen Hao from the air and sat cross-legged. Chen Hao seemed to come alive. Under the control of the young girl, he also sat cross-legged with his back facing the young girl. The young girl's crystal clear and tender palm suddenly pressed against Chen Hao's life gate. Threads of pure green energy, emitting a majestic light of life, quickly merged into Chen Hao's heavily injured body. What made the young girl slightly surprised was that Chen Hao, whose internal organs were clearly shattered, was actually slowly repairing himself. The broken cells seemed to be reorganizing. Immortal bloodline. The young girl said in surprise. Immediately, a happy smile appeared on her beautiful little face. She murmured, "You won't die. Don't be afraid, Yu will help you heal." "I'm sorry. Yu is so stupid. Don't you have the nirvana pill?" the young girl said to herself. Until she felt that Chen Hao would not die, the panicked young girl recovered her reason. The amethyst jade marrow bracelet on her wrist suddenly flashed with a purple light. A milky white jade bottle floated in front of her and opened by itself. A fiery red pill floated out. In an instant, a strange medicinal fragrance filled the entire space and slowly floated to Chen Hao's mouth. The unconscious Chen Hao, under the control of the young girl's mysterious energy, suddenly opened his mouth. The jujube-sized pill suddenly entered his mouth. At this time, the young girl still did not stop instilling energy. Instead, she was afraid that Chen Hao would be in too much pain, so she directly began to use the medicinal efficacy of the nirvana pill. If the young girl's father and grandfather were to know of this, they would be so angry that their mustaches would curl up. That was the nirvana pill that could regenerate the flesh and bones of the dead. Even if Chen Hao's internal organs were turned into a pile of meat paste, as long as his soul did not dissipate, he would be able to recover in a few minutes and be as lively as before. This was something that they were not willing to use unless they were in the most dangerous situation. But the young girl was so stupid that she did not understand the value of the nirvana pill. She wasted the precious pill that her grandfather gave her just in case on Chen Hao. Third update. Begging for monthly votes and subscriptions. Thank you. Chapter 106. Cough cough, I've been raped. I'm tearing my heart in begging for monthly votes, monthly votes. Please everyone. Wuxian crawls away and writes, trying hard to update. Brothers and sisters, please give Wuxian a hand and explode back. Please. It's very sad to be exploded, hiss hiss hiss. As soon as the pill entered his mouth, it was stimulated by the girl's pure energy, and the medicinal efficacy immediately spread out. In an instant, Chen Hao's body began to glow with a fiery light, as if his entire body was immersed in flames. A phoenix had been reborn from the ashes. Chen Hao, who seemed to be unconscious, was actually very clear. He had experienced this kind of near-death situation countless times in the mysterious yellow treasure house, but it had never been man-made like this time, and it was even an unintentional act. He saw the shock and panic in the girl's eyes, heard the girl's nervous words, felt the girl's pure and majestic would attribute energy, and was forced to swallow the nirvana pill the girl spoke of. Chen Hao clearly felt a fiery medicinal power, causing his seriously injured body to recover at a speed that was thousands of times faster than his own recovery. In an instant, in less than 2 minutes, Chen Hao's shattered internal organs were completely healed, but Chen Hao did not open his eyes, because the girl was still, crazily, instilling energy into him, and stimulating the little amount of nirvana pill in his body. Power. Chen Hao felt a surge of power, like a river bursting through a dam, crazily pouring into his dantian. Your injuries have healed, but the nirvana pill's energy is still a lot. You should quickly refine it, otherwise it will be wasted. Yu will help you. The girl's heavenly voice had already lost its tension, but when Chen Hao heard it, he was immediately shocked. The energy pouring into his dantian was about to make him explode, and the girl still wanted to help him. Motherfucker, Chen Hao could not describe his feelings at this moment. He really did not expect that there would be a day when he would encounter a great kindness, where he would not even have the chance to refuse. Hiss hiss hiss, as soon as the girl finished speaking, the incomparably pure medicinal power crazily rolled into Chen Hao's dantian. Boom! Chen Hao, who was already using all his strength to activate the secret to long life, was incomparably terrified. However, after the boundless energy surged in, his dantian felt as if it was about to explode. But in the end, it did not explode. Even the slightest bit of damage was repaired by the medicinal power. What a powerful elixir! Nirvana elixir, nirvana rebirth? Chen Hao could not help but think. Soon after, knowing that his life was not in danger, Chen Hao immediately threw away all the distracting thoughts in his mind and immersed himself in cultivation. His cultivation is so low. Why is he only a rank 9 martial monarch? This ruin is a place where one can comprehend yin and yang and reach the peak of the martial god realm. That's not right, could it be that he also entered the ruin like Yu? The girl thought to herself as she sensed the condition of Chen Hao's body. Gradually, a mischievous smile appeared on Qing Cheng's face. She muttered, "It must be. The owner of this ruin is really interesting. He even tricked Yu. It's just that he's clearly a martial emperor, but his body has the 5 elements circulating within it. He even has the undying bloodline. How strange." Time passed by minute. Chen Hao was immersed in cultivation. He was crazily refining the vigorous energy that seemed to be able to make him explode at any time. The Yuan Qi in his Dantian became increasingly vigorous and surging. It seemed as if it had reached the limit of the emperor-level Dantian's endurance. Chen Hao had never been able to comprehend the emperor-level barrier. But, he was now able to clearly touch it under the impact of the vigorous energy. A trace of understanding gradually appeared in Chen Hao's heart. Moreover, as time passed, it became clearer and clearer. Rumble. 6 hours later, an explosion sounded in Chen Hao's mind and Dantian at the same time. Chen Hao clearly felt that the 2 barriers of martial intent, which had been inexplicably linked for a long time, were finally broken at the same time. Hiss hiss hiss, in an instant, Chen Hao's refining speed increased by more than 10 times. A brand new domain appeared in front of Chen Hao's eyes, causing Chen Hao's mind to tremble. Even he did not expect that after becoming a martial emperor, his strength would increase by so much. At this time, Chen Hao could not help but look down on his inflated self-confidence when he was a martial emperor. A frog in a well peeking at the sky, a river god looking at the sea. Realm. Only by truly reaching the corresponding realm would one be able to understand the true strength of that realm. Chen Hao indeed possessed the strength to challenge those of a higher rank and even higher rank. However, that was before the martial emperor level. The martial emperor level was a completely different level. If he was only a rank 9 martial emperor, no matter how strong his physical body was, he would not be able to contend against Zhao Yunfei, who was a martial emperor. On top of that, he was also a rank 9 martial emperor. The fusion of the 2 energies would at most be able to contend against Zhao Yunfei, who was a rank 1 martial emperor. However, if he wanted to defeat him, it would not be as simple as he had originally thought. Sensing Chen Hao's breakthrough, the young girl's incomparably clear eyes immediately revealed a trace of astonishment. She was not astonished that Chen Hao was able to become a martial emperor. Instead, she was astonished by the dense energy that was suddenly emitted from Chen Hao's forehead. It was clearly the aura of becoming a martial emperor. Furthermore, you have a physique that cultivates both martial and mental energy. No wonder your barrier was so hard to break through. Alright, I've finished refining the Nirvana pellet. Yu won't bother with you anymore. The young girl slowly withdrew her lily-white hands that were pressing against Chen Hao's vitals. Without any movement, her body seemed to have disappeared into thin air. Soon after, she appeared in front of Chen Hao and sat cross-legged. With her clear and beautiful eyes, she looked at Chen Hao, who was still immersed in his cultivation. She shook her little head and looked left and right. She had an appearance of curiosity. He clearly looks smaller than Yu. Why does it feel like he's bigger than Yu? Especially when he opens his eyes. The young girl held her cheeks as she thought in her heart. Right at this time, Chen Hao let out a long breath and slowly opened his eyes. The moment Chen Hao opened his eyes, he saw the young girl in front of him. She had a flawless white jade-like face, clear and pure eyes, and a faint fragrance like orchids. This caused Chen Hao's heart that was as firm as a rock to thump. He stared at the young girl in a daze and became infatuated. The young girl looked straight at Chen Hao and revealed a charming smile. With a heavenly voice, she said, "My name is Xia Yuyu. What about you?" Chen Hao. How old are you? Yuyu is 16 years old. Isn't she older than you? He. The young girl's clear eyes turned into crescent moons, containing a trace of complacency as she innocently said. Chen Hao took a deep breath, avoided that devastatingly beautiful face, and said in a deep voice, 17. You're lying, no. Chen Hao firmly said. Whether it was Chen Hao or this young girl called Xia Yuyu, although it was the first time the two of them talked, there seemed to be no barrier between them. It was as if they had known each other for a very long time. After all, the two of them had been together with each other's image for 10 whole months. Moreover, the inheritance of this remnant was originally left behind by a pair of Tao companions. The two of them cultivated the 9 revolution heavenly yang earthly yin technique, which contained countless subtle connections. No way. Grandpa said that liars have flickering eyes. You don't dare to look at Yuyu, so you must be lying. Moreover, your life aura is clearly at most 15 years old. Yuyu has checked your body, so you should be 14 years old. However, you have the undying bloodline, so there might be some abnormalities. You can even see this? Chen Hao said in surprise. Of course. When you reach the peak of 9th grade martial saint, you'll also be able to see it. He. Admit it, right? Call me big sister. The young girl's mouth slightly rose as she said proudly. Cough cough. You're saying that you're already, the peak of 9th grade martial saint. Although Chen Hao had already felt that the young girl's cultivation surpassed his by a lot, when the young girl really said it, he already felt an incomparable pain and disbelief. What kind of concept was 9th grade martial saint? How old was she? A 16-year-old 9th grade martial saint. Old man Xiao was already very old, but he was only a rank 7 martial emperor. Although it was because he did not have the last 9 layers of the longevity technique, he was greatly restricted. However, the disparity was simply too great. With the martial ancestor realm between them, there was an entire 19 levels of difference. Furthermore, this was not the 19 levels below the martial emperor level. The difference of a single level was the difference between heaven and earth, much less 19 levels. Not to mention old man Xiao, what about Huangqi? What about the so-called experts of the new show hall? You don't believe me? The young girl said. I do. What's the undying bloodline? Chen Hao asked. You don't even know this? Hearing Chen Hao's words, Xia Yuyu seemed to be a bit astonished. I know very little. Chen Hao was already certain that the young girl before him was definitely not an ordinary person. Although he felt a bit embarrassed, he still said it. Oh, the undying bloodline is a kind of physique. Some are innate, some are cultivated. You are clearly innate. If you learn the undying divine king's undying golden body technique, your body will become even stronger. At the highest level, your body will become indestructible. Who's the undying divine king? This. You don't know. Xia Yuyu frowned. I don't know. If I'm not wrong. You shouldn't belong here. We should be people of 2 different levels. Chen Hao said with a slight frown. Right. Yuyu forgot. I'm sorry, your cultivation base is so low. You should be a disciple of one of these dynasties, right? Yes. Who are you? Who? What I mean is, where are you from? Oh, Yuyu is a disciple of the Ling Tian sect. The two of them talked for a full 4 hours. One was thirsty for knowledge while the other was naive and did not know how to hold back. This allowed Chen Hao to learn about a higher-level world from Xia Yuyu's mouth. It also allowed Chen Hao to clearly understand his direction and goal. Dynasties, which were also kingdoms and empires, were the lowest level of the cultivation world. The boundless land was vast and boundless. There were tens of thousands of sects and supersections. Only these true sects could be called true cultivators. According to Xia Yuyu, her innate talent and cultivation base could be considered outstanding in the eastern continent. But in the boundless land, it was hard to say, and these sects that were above the dynasties were inextricably linked to the dynasties. The 8 Nations New Talent Ranking, 100 Empire Ranking, Dragon Transformation Ranking, each level was higher than the last. This was the only way for sects to select disciples from the dynasties. After the two of them chatted freely, they, who were in a hurry to leave the ruin, once again began to cultivate the 9-revolution Heaven-Yang Earth-Yin technique. This time, Xia Yuyu sealed her own strength to be at the same level as Chen Hao's. When their palms touched, they sensed and comprehended each other's energy. Although Chen Hao's pure yang energy was too weak in comparison to Xia Yuyu's, it was fortunate that she only wanted to comprehend the existence of yang within yin. As for Chen Hao's pure yang energy, other than being weak, it didn't have any flaws and was extremely pure. First update. Requesting monthly votes. Dark Mountain is going all out. Please support next month's monthly votes. Thank you. Calm to vote. Chapter 107. Dear friends, take pity on Wuxian. He's been fighting for nearly 16 hours a day. Those with monthly votes, please vote for Wuxian. Wuxian will continue to climb and fight. Wuxian is working hard. Please. I beg you for monthly votes. Time flies like an arrow, and time flies like a shuttle. In the blink of an eye, Chen Hao and Xia Yuyu had spent 1 year and 5 months in the remnant. The disciples of the 8 Great Kingdoms Royal New Show Hall had stopped all their training. The biennial New Talent Ranking competition of the 8 Great Kingdoms had entered a state of intense preparation. Amazing, truly amazing. Did you hear? The 9th-ranked Moue obtained the inheritance of the 10,000 Swords ancient city and became a true swordsman. I already knew. Not only did he become a swordsman, but he also became the 3rd expert in our Cold Moon Hall to advance to the Martial Emperor level after Dongfang Jun and Helian Wuzi. That's a sword emperor. Motherfucker, truly enviable. With such strength, he can definitely challenge those of a higher level. He's qualified to participate in the new talent ranking competition of the 8 Great Kingdoms. That's right. I reckon he'll be able to obtain a pretty good ranking in the new talent ranking competition of the 8 Great Kingdoms. That Helian Wuzi is even more amazing. 2 months ago, she obtained the inheritance of the ancient city of drifting snow. Her battle power is extremely high. Among the new disciples of our new show hall, she's likely second only to Dongfang Jun. That's not necessarily true. You probably still don't know that Zhao Yunfei, who disappeared for over a year, has returned, right? Ah. The Fierce Sun Hall has sent out news that Zhao Yunfei has already become a rank 4 martial emperor. It said that when he returned, his entire body was emitting a strong killing intent. Just that killing intent alone is enough to make people feel fear. I truly don't know how many cruel killings he has experienced to have that kind of aura. Among the new disciples, he's still the #1 expert. Sigh, back then, we were also first-rate geniuses in our respective provinces, but compared to others. The youngster who spoke shook his head. A trace of bitterness appeared on the corner of his mouth as he said, Helian Wuzi and Moue are the same as us. Their backgrounds are even worse. They came from a small county. However, their luck, opportunity, talent. Oh, that's right. There's also Chen Hao from back then. We still don't know how he is. It's already been over a year since he obtained the remnant and has yet to come out. If he's able to come out, to what extent? I really suspect that the small county town is a blessed place. In the Royal New Show Hall, discussions like this were the topic of conversation for almost all the junior disciples. After more than a year, after the year-end competition and a series of group training, these new disciples had become junior disciples of 2 years of age. Fang Qing and the others had also become intermediate disciples. They had become familiar with each other, and their social circles and cliques had undergone subtle changes. Some of the true geniuses who didn't reveal their talents had also become brilliant new stars. Among these people, Helian Wuxi and Moue were the leaders. This was something that no one had expected. It was also something that no one could believe. The small Yunzhou county was now famous throughout the royal New Shou Hall and the Zhenyuan kingdom. Although Qinhao did not come out of the ruins, there was no conclusion for the time being. However, Helian Wuxi and Moue had also obtained the inheritance of the relics in the training arranged by the royal New Shou Hall. This was something that only happened once in 10 years, however, it had happened. Moreover, it had happened to 3 disciples in the same county. In the last month of preparation for the 8 Nations New Talent Ranking Competition, the New Shou Hall of the 8 Nations was very lively. The Royal New Shou Hall of the Zhenyuan Kingdom would gather in the core martial arts arena every day. The New Shou Hall's instructors and experts would be the main fighters. Any disciple who was qualified to participate in the 8 Nations New Talent Ranking Competition could challenge on the stage. The instructors would simulate the unique skills that the disciples of each nation were good at and spar with these disciples. The 8 Nations New Talent Ranking Competition was divided into 3 groups, the junior group, the intermediate group, and the advanced group. The junior group required one to be under 18 years old and at least a first-stage overlord level cultivation. The intermediate group required one to be under 20 years old and at least a third-stage overlord level cultivation. The advanced group required one to be under 24 years old and at least a 4th-stage overlord level cultivation. The 3 levels were only the registration restrictions. The real new talent ranking competition was a completely unified ranking battle. However, smart people could see that the registration requirements were completely prepared for the true genius disciples. For example, many of the intermediate disciples in the Royal New Shou Hall had advanced to overlord level, but their ages were basically over 20 years old. In other words, they had to register for the advanced group, but their cultivation did not reach the 4th stage overlord level requirement. Thus, they lost the right to register. In short, one had to be young and have a high cultivation to meet the registration requirements. Therefore, the new talent ranking competition was specially prepared for the true genius disciples. Being able to qualify for the new talent ranking competition was an unparalleled honor. Being able to get a good ranking would undoubtedly shake the 8 great empires. In the Royal New Shou Hall, the 1-month special arena competition began. Almost 100% of the disciples would watch and learn. While it was bustling with noise and excitement, in the ruins, Qinhao and Xia Yuyu had finally comprehended the man and woman, life and death, sun and moon, and entered the last level, heaven and earth. In these sealed ruins, there was no third person. For close to a year and a half, Qinhao and Xia Yuyu, this powerful yet pure and beautiful girl, had been together day and night. Their interactions were extremely harmonious, especially after they had started to comprehend the man and woman realm together. Because of this special technique, the two people's minds seemed to have formed an extremely subtle connection. Although they had not reached the highest level of telepathy, their telepathy was very clear. With just a glance, they could roughly know what the other was thinking. The pure Xia Yuyu did not have any problems, but ever since the man and woman realm started, Qinhao had already discovered that the 9 revolutions Heaven-Yang Earth-Yin art had a feeling similar to the joyful Zen, dual cultivation and other techniques. This made him very worried from the bottom of his heart. He was worried about himself, and also worried about Xia Yuyu. After more than a year, he was only 15 years old. In the end, he was still too young. As for Xia Yuyu's clear and pure gaze, as well as her incomparably pure personality. If the next few revolutions really had to be completed through sexual intercourse, what would he do? Even if Qinhao was very happy in the depths of his heart, the impact on the pure Xia Yuyu would be too great. moreover, Chen Hao was now completely clear of Xia Yuyu's identity. If he really did that kind of thing with Xia Yuyu, he would most likely die without a burial ground. Although Chen Hao did not want to admit it, at this moment, the difference between him and Xia Yuyu was like heaven and earth. What was worth rejoicing over was that until the last revolution of the heaven and earth realm, this technique was based on passion and propriety. Although it was charming and gentle, it abided by the rules. Sitting cross-legged, Chen Hao and Xia Yuyu's palms touched as they floated in a dusky space. Chen Hao's body flickered with resplendent white light, like a scorching sun. As for Xia Yuyu's figure, it was shrouded in a pitch-black light. One white, one black. It was as if they wanted to devour each other's light, forming a black and white belt of light between the two of them, entangling endlessly. The two of them seemed as if they could stick together at any moment, but every time their lips touched, they would struggle with all their might, crazily urging their energy to gradually separate. But because of the black and white belt of light between the two of them, they were unable to truly separate. Especially when their hands were clasped together, it was as if they had been refined into one. Heaven yang, earth yin, yang qi rises, yin qi sinks, dividing heaven and earth. This is called the 9 revolutions pure yang, 9 revolutions pure yin. Their minds were clear as the incantation for the 9th revolution of the heaven and earth realm resounded, making the final push. As long as the two of them had yang within their yin and yin within their yang, they would be able to merge and separate as they pleased. The 9 revolutions heaven yang earth yin art would reach large success. That would also be the moment the two of them walked out of the ruins. Outside the ruins, an imposing and refined middle-aged man was clearly sitting cross-legged, but no one would be able to sense his aura when they passed by. Even if they were right in front of them, they would not be able to see him. This middle-aged man seemed to have merged with heaven and earth, becoming one with heaven and earth, ethereal and illusory. The middle-aged man held something that looked like a mirror in his hand. The back of the mirror was covered with complicated runes, emitting an ancient aura. He held the mirror in his left hand and formed a sword with his right hand. He pointed at the mirror, and it was as if a beam of light was poured into it. The middle-aged man looked at the mirror with bright eyes. Then, the misty white surface of the mirror dispersed like clouds, and an image appeared in front of the middle-aged man's eyes. It caused the middle-aged man's refined and handsome face to become extremely embarrassed. It was as if even the black beard that he had deliberately grown was trembling. Humph. My daughter is God's favored daughter, Father's most beloved granddaughter, the top genius of the Ling Tian sect. A mere kingdom's disciple actually. The bastard owner of this ruins is simply unreasonable. If Yuyu's state of mind is disturbed, I'll make sure you die a graveless death. No, I can't let this brat go just like that. Yuyu isn't even 17 years old this year. If she develops feelings for this brat, the consequences will be unimaginable. The image in the mirror was actually Chen Hao and Xia Yuyu who were comprehending the last level of the ruins. Moreover, it just so happened that the two of them were pulled together by the yin and yang energy and were almost kissing each other. How could the middle-aged man not be angry? He had long since suggested to the sect master, who was his father and Xia Yuyu's grandfather, to destroy this remnant and save Xia Yuyu. However, the sect master had not agreed, saying that this was Xia Yuyu's opportunity and luck. He would not destroy it until the last step. Otherwise, it would cut off all of Xia Yuyu's fortune in the future. The so-called last step was, of course, the kind of thing between a man and a woman. Similarly, when he said that he would tear that brat, who was Chen Hao, into pieces after they came out of the ruins, the sect leader did not agree either. He said that since he could enter the ruins at the same time as Yuyu, it was also their fate. He could not kill him, otherwise, it would become a knot in Yuyu's heart, and the impact would be even greater. No, he must die. Yuyu obviously has feelings for this brat. How can this brat be worthy of Yuyu? I won't make a move in front of Yuyu. The middle-aged man's refined face flashed with a trace of ruthlessness as he thought to himself. What? Are you not going to listen to your father? Right at this moment, a ripple suddenly appeared in space, and an old man with the demeanor of a transcendent being actually silently appeared in front of the middle-aged man. The old man seemed to have seen through the middle-aged man's thoughts and said directly. Father, why are you here again? I didn't intend to let you clean up the mess. You, come out quickly. The old man glared at the middle-aged man and said. P.S. Second update. Pleading for monthly votes, pleading for monthly votes. Dark Mountain will continue to work hard. Third update, please give Dark Mountain some support, please. Chapter 108. Friends who still have monthly tickets, please support Dark Mountain. Thank you very much. This sage-like old man was the sect leader of Ling Tian sect, Xia Lingfeng, Xia Yuyu's grandfather. When Xia Yuyu and Chen Hao had been in the ruins for 8 months, Xia Lingfeng locked onto the ruins and personally came out to investigate. Using his supreme divine ability, he penetrated through the spatial barrier and sent his divine sense into the ruins, confirming Xia Yuyu's location. Then, he used his divine sense to break open a seal and connect it to the spirit treasure clear abyss mirror, so that he could check on Xia Yuyu's situation at any time. Xia Yuyu's father, Xia Yutong, then personally stood guard here, waiting for Xia Yuyu to come out. Father, that brat really can't be left alive. Yuyu is currently in the golden period of cultivation. If her mental state is affected by that brat, it will definitely affect her progress. Furthermore, how revered is our Yuyu's status? Before he even stepped into the pugilistic world, he had already made a name for himself and attracted the attention of many genius disciples. If we can form a marriage alliance with the genius disciples of the Origin Gate, Heaven's Sword sect, and other super sects in the future, it will definitely be of great help to our Ling Tian sect. This brat's status is lowly, and he has been with Yu for more than a year. Although the cultivation method he cultivates is righteous, but if word gets out, it will have a huge impact on Yuyu's future. Shut up. Hearing Xia Yutong's words, Xia Lingfeng immediately rebuked angrily, it's not wrong that you know how to maximize benefits. But do you know how these ancient ruins were created? The world of cultivation never lacked fortuitous encounters and luck. Who could ascend to the top purely by relying on one's own natural talent? For a true genius, although one's own talent is important, what's even more important is opportunity and luck. The ancient ruins in the world seem scattered, but they are inextricably linked. Father, I know, you only know one thing, but not the other. That kid was only an emperor-level cultivator, yet he was able to enter the ruins with a saint-level cultivator. How deep was his luck? The genius disciple of the Yuan Gate, Chu Qingtian, the genius disciple of the Sky Sword sect, Wu Ruochen, the genius disciple of the Misty Palace, Gu Xing, and the other disciples with great fortune. Which one of them didn't have great luck and endless fortuitous encounters to have their current achievements? Luck and opportunity were like a cultivator's advancement in cultivation. If you succeeded once, there would be a second time, and it would be stronger and stronger. This brat is only an emperor realm cultivator. So, it's impossible for him to be selected by the ruins. Obviously, he has some kind of lucky chance that neither you nor I know about. Moreover, he has comprehended the attributes of the 5 elements. That's why it's possible. Although he was penniless now, it didn't mean that he would be penniless in the future. Give him a chance, maybe a miracle will happen. Is that possible? Anything is possible. He did start a little late. But don't forget, many of the most talented disciples were recruited from these small kingdoms. Moreover, him being able to enter the ruins at the same time as Yu was a kind of fate in itself. If he killed this kid, it would be equivalent to cutting off Yu's luck. From then on, it would be very difficult for Yu to obtain great opportunities and great luck. That was the most important thing. Therefore, we only need to take you away. The final outcome will depend on this kid's performance. This way, the impact on you will be minimized. Oh, 3 days later. The sun was high in the sky, and the sky was clear. Gusts of mountain wind blew gently, carrying the aura of the demonic beasts of the Demon Cloud Mountain range. At this moment, a dense fluctuation suddenly rippled within a radius of 100 miles, and the surrounding space seemed to fluctuate violently. Immediately, dark clouds gathered in the clear sky at an astonishing speed and rolled down. The demonic beasts within 100 miles immediately let out roars of horror and fled in all directions in terror. A fierce wind blew, and the energy of heaven and earth fluctuated violently, which was 1,000 times more intense than the change a year and a half ago. Boom! With a sudden explosion, a beam of light suddenly rose from a mountain peak and went straight to the sky. Whoosh! Whoosh! 2 figures shot out along with the beam of light as fast as lightning. Ha ha ha, ah! A clear and melodious laughter, like the sound of nature, was accompanied by a wild howl that shook the mountain forest. The howl rolled and shook the surroundings, causing the dark clouds in the sky to scatter. However, the faint and melodious laughter of the girl, although very light, was not suppressed by the howl at all. How, your howl at full power can't suppress Yuyu's laughter at 10% power, hee. I'm only a 5th grade spirit realm, and you've already advanced to the divine realm. How can I compare to you? A young man who was tall and straight like a sword, with a delicate and handsome face, and a young girl who was beautiful enough to cause the downfall of a city, flew in the air, hand in hand, and slowly floated down from the top of the light pillar. These two were Qianhao and Xia Yuyu. After a full year and a half, the two finally comprehended the 9 revolutions heavenly young earthine formula and stepped out of the ruins. A year and a half, we're finally out. The two seemed to have a tacit understanding, and each said half a sentence. Yuyu. At this time, 2 figures, like 2 shooting stars, crossed the distance of dozens of li in an instant and appeared in front of Qianhao and Xia Yuyu. When one of the figures saw Qianhao and Xia Yuyu holding hands, he immediately frowned, and a trace of anger flashed in his eyes. He fiercely looked at Qianhao, and a majestic and terrifying pressure pressed down on Qianhao from all directions. At this moment, Qianhao felt his body freeze, and his internal organs were churning. Father, what are you doing? Xia Yuyu was startled, and suddenly opened her arms, blocking in front of Qianhao. Humph. Xia Yutang coldly snorted, and with a serious expression, said without allowing any resistance, Yuyu, come here. Grandfather. Father is bullying Yuyu. Xia Yuyu had never seen her father with such an expression, and immediately looked at the sage-like old man with grievance and said. Yuyu, you secretly escaped from the sect, grandfather can't help you this time. The sage-like Xia Lingfeng also looked at Qianhao, whose face was red, and was obviously hurt by Xia Yutang's aura, and said indifferently. He seemed to have no intention of protecting Xia Yuyu. Still not coming here. Xia Yutang angrily rebuked. You're not allowed to hurt Hao. Xia Yuyu said stubbornly with tears in her eyes. Hearing Xia Yuyu's intimate address, Xia Yutang was even more furious, and wished that he could crush Qianhao to death right now. I told you to come here. Enough. Seeing that Xia Yutang couldn't control himself again, Xia Lingfeng waved his hand and said, Your father won't hurt him, go back with grandfather. Grandfather. Can you let Qianhao go back with us? His talent and comprehension are very high. Although his cultivation is low now, he can already operate the 5 elements and comprehend yin and yang. He will be able to improve very quickly. Xia Yuyu looked back at the cold expression of Qianhao, bit her lips, and turned around to plead. But Xia Lingfeng shook his head and said, Any existence that disturbs your state of mind should disappear from this world. Grandfather can only promise you that I won't kill him. From now on, you two will never see each other again. No. Xia Yuyu suddenly mustered up her courage and said. At this moment, she deeply felt the perilous waves in Chen Hao's heart. In particular, Chen Hao's expression, which was gradually turning icy cold, filled her with worry. Hiss. Xia Lingfeng lightly waved his hand, and a screen of light suddenly enveloped Xia Yuyu. Immediately, Xia Yuyu, who had comprehended yin and yang and had just stepped into the martial god realm, floated from Chen Hao's side to Xia Yutong's side without the slightest bit of resistance. Grandfather. I beg you, kid, listen up. You and Yuyu are not people of the same world. You should already know that we are a great sect that surpasses the dynasty. Yuyu is a blessed daughter of the heavens. Xia Yuyu, who had already stepped into the martial god realm, was only 17 years old. On her level, she was a rare genius, but she wasn't an expert and still needed to grow. Third update. 9,000 plus words. Begging for monthly votes, begging for subscriptions. Many thanks. Chapter 109. This is the first update. Monthly votes, please give a monthly vote to Wuxian. It's about to explode. It's urgent. Please, save me, phew. I'm finally out. When Chen Hao calmed down and began to heal his injuries, the treasure-hunting sword spirit, who had been hiding in the depths of his mind for a year and a half, finally let out a long sigh of relief and slowly spread out his perception. His improvement is really fast. At this rate, he should be able to awaken that thing in a few years, right? I have to perform well. This kid is affectionate and righteous. He definitely won't let me live a life worse than death. The treasure-hunting sword spirit trembled when he thought of the time when he was in that thing. Those dark days were worse than death. He didn't want to go in a second time. Whoosh! 4 hours later, a stream of light streaked across the sky. Chen Hao's figure was like lightning as he soared into the sky. The journey that should have taken more than 10 days only took Chen Hao less than half a day. He appeared in the forbidden area of the Royal New Show Hall. After activating the identity token, a wave of fluctuation blended into the drifting clouds. A moment later, a strange wave of fluctuation enveloped Chen Hao. When he reappeared, he was already inside the Royal New Show Hall. When the old man in charge of opening the protective restriction sensed the fluctuation of the restriction, he knew that a disciple had returned. He was about to bring him in, but he didn't expect that the person who came would actually use the identity token to break the restriction. This made the old man think that it was an expert from the Royal New Show Hall. He didn't expect that the person who appeared in front of him was only a teenager who looked to be 15 or 16 years old. You are? The old man asked, a little surprised. No matter how hard he racked his brains, he couldn't think of when the Royal New Show Hall had such a young expert. One had to know that the sex protective restriction could only be opened by a person with a cultivation of at least the 3rd stage of the Overlord realm. How could the old man not be surprised? He knew all the disciples in the Royal New Show Hall who had reached the Overlord realm at such a young age. Chen Hao. Chen Hao cupped his fists and said to the old man. Chen Hao. Are you the Chen Hao who entered the ruins a year and a half ago? The old man's eyes widened. Exactly. Amazing. 3rd stage Martial Emperor realm and above. You're really amazing. Quickly go to the core arena. With your cultivation, you're definitely qualified to participate in the 8 Nations Rookie List competition. Maybe you can even win glory for our Jinyuan kingdom. Young and promising. Congratulations. Is the rookie list of the 8 nations about to begin? Chen Hao's expression changed slightly, and his eyes sparkled with a bright light. Yes, yes. In less than a month's time, we'll be leaving. Now, all the disciples of the Royal New Show Hall are gathered in the core arena for the final special training. Good. Thank you, Senior. Chen Hao cupped his fists and bowed. With a flash, he disappeared from the old man's sight. Such astonishing speed caused the old man's expression to change again. After being stunned for a few seconds, he came back to his senses and muttered to himself, "That speed. I'm afraid he's reached rank 6 Martial Emperor. Even I, old man, am not that fast." Old, this Chen Hao is not even 15 years old. Evidently, there was no one in the Royal New Show Hall who did not know of Chen Hao's existence. The Royal New Show Hall's core arena. On the incomparably huge stage, origin power was wreaking havoc, and shattered rocks were swirling in the air. Even more shockingly, even though it was clearly a scorching summer day, the 100-meter-wide stage was actually filled with snow. This caused the entire arena to be enveloped by an ice-cold aura, as if it was winter. Ha ha ha. Junior sister Xiaowu, you're becoming more and more beautiful, more and more powerful. Not bad at all. This is the inheritance of the ancient city of drifting snow. Merely with this aura, you're qualified to be the number 2 disciple of our Cold Moon Hall. Don't worry, I, your senior brother, am indebted to the instructor for thinking highly of me, so I'll temporarily be the champion of the beginner group. Naturally, I'll let you fight to your heart's content, and I won't injure you. Humph. Hellion Wuzi frowned. Her expression was ice-cold to begin with. At that moment, her beautiful eyes were filled with ice and snow. With merely her gaze, it was as if she had the ability to turn the life in front of her into an ice sculpture. Without any words, she violently waved her slender jade-like palm. Snow filled the sky. In an instant, the drifting snowflakes, as Hellion Wuzi waved her palm, immediately became berserk. Like locusts, they emitted an ice-cold aura. With a buzzing sound, they covered the sky and covered the earth as they attacked Dongfang Jun. She did not show any mercy. In the past 1.5 years, in the days without Chen Hao, Hellion Wuzi had been harassed countless times. If Fang Qing had not invited her and Moue to join Fang Qing's small team, and if Huang Qi had not occasionally stepped in to protect them, Hellion Wuzi and Moue might not have been able to persevere until now. Hellion Wuzi was still fine. After all, Dongfang Jun wanted her, so he would not go so far as to destroy her. However, Moue had suffered heavy injuries several times. Under the huge pressure, she and Moue cultivated even more crazily. Not only did they follow Chen Hao's special training for them, they even went beyond it. Every mission, every experience, they gave it their all, causing themselves to be on the verge of death. Finally, dawn came. She and Moue rose one after another, obtained the powerful inheritance of the relics, and stepped into the emperor level. Only then did Dongfang Jun and the others restrain themselves a little. It's useless. Junior sister Xiaowu, let's fight hand to hand. Ha! Dongfang Jun said indifferently. With a boom, the valiant protective aura around his body blossomed. Purely relying on the protective aura, he forcibly blocked Hellion Wuzi's flying snow sky. The snowflakes that contained powerful energy immediately dissipated as if they had encountered a flame. Scarlet flame air-splitting palm. Whoosh, the distance of more than 10 feet was crossed in an instant. Dongfang Jun's violent and vigorous blue yuan power actually shone with a bright, flame-like light, like a blue flame with a red flame. In an instant, he and his palm became one, and rushed to within 2 meters of Hellion Wuzi. Scarlet flame air-splitting fist, level 10 martial technique. Only cultivators who had comprehended the fire attribute could unleash its true power. When the palm struck out, it was like a roaring fire dragon, burning everything. When cultivated to the highest level, one could break through the air and teleport 100 meters. When the palm landed, it had the power to break mountains and shatter mountains. Its power was endless. Due to the restriction of Dongfang Jun's cultivation, although he did not cultivate it to the highest level, the power of his palm strike caused the disciples below the stage to be terrified. At the edge of the stage, Moue, who had a trace of blood at the corner of his mouth, was deeply frowning. A trace of worry appeared in his eyes that seemed to contain sharp sword rays. Before Helian Wuzi, he had already fought against Dongfang Jun. Unfortunately, Dongfang Jun's cultivation was 4 entire levels higher than his. Before absolute power, he was simply no match for him. Dongfang Jun had already become a rank 5 martial emperor. Furthermore, he had comprehended the fire attribute's derivative energy. Furthermore, after undergoing the meridian's cleansing and marrow cleansing, Dongfang Jun's body had become incomparably valiant. Even though Moue had obtained the inheritance of the 10,000 swords ancient city's remnant and became a true sword emperor, he was still unable to contend against Dongfang Jun. Even though Helian Wuzi's absolute power surpassed Moue's and she had also become a rank 3 martial emperor, she was still 2 levels below Dongfang Jun, SSSS. Seeing that Dongfang Jun's fist was about to reach her, Helian Wuzi's body suddenly floated down. In an instant, dense fog filled the air. "Ha, you want to dodge? Break for me." When his fist missed, Dongfang Jun laughed heartily. Both of his palms faced the dense fog that filled the sky and suddenly waved. Containing fire attribute origin power, it instantly wreaked havoc in all directions. The fog attribute fog that Helian Wuzi had formed immediately dissipated. This caused Helian Wuzi to frown deeply. Fire and water were incompatible. When the water was strong, the fire would be extinguished. When the fire was strong, the water would evaporate. Before Dongfang Jun's absolute strength, Helian Wuzi was indeed unable to contend against him. Furthermore, Helian Wuzi was mentally unwilling to engage in close combat with Dongfang Jun, this shameless bastard. That was because she could imagine what the shameless Dongfang Jun would do if that were to happen. "I've lost." After Helian Wuzi floated far away, she spoke without the slightest hesitation. "How could that be? Junior sister Xiaowu, we have yet to properly get intimate. Come, don't worry, your senior brother will definitely not injure you." Shameless. Helian Wuzi's heart was filled with anger. However, she could only endure it. She did not wish for this shameless bastard to take advantage of her. This was not the time for her to risk her life. Although Chen Hao had already trained her in the 18 ways to defend against wolves, that was Chen Hao. Unless it was a real life and death battle, how could she possibly engage in close combat with Dongfang Jun, who had ulterior motives? Just touching her body would make her feel disgusted. Furthermore, Dongfang Jun's strength indeed exceeded hers. If she could not defend against him, that would be a humiliation. Helian Wuzi scolded coldly and directly jumped off the stage. "I'll get intimate with you." Right at this moment, a clear but cold voice suddenly came from the sky. That voice seemed to contain no emotions and appeared strangely. There wasn't even the slightest bit of energy fluctuation. Even the expert instructor on the platform did not detect any fluctuation in the sky. But at this moment, a handsome figure slowly descended from the sky onto the stage. This figure was Chen Hao. When Helian Wuzi stepped onto the stage, he had already arrived. However, he was afraid that he would affect Helian Wuzi's battle, so he restrained his aura and floated in the air. He stared at Helian Wuzi, whom he had not seen for a year and a half, as well as Moue, who was standing below the stage with a slight injury. The aura of the two people and Helian Wuzi's expression when facing Dongfang Jun made Chen Hao feel relieved. In a year and a half, Chen Hao's height had already grown by half a head. His originally delicate and handsome face had become even more distinct, with sword-like eyebrows and starry eyes. His complexion was like jade, and his cold expression and indifferent words caused everyone to deeply feel the arrogance that came from his bones. Chen Hao's voice had also changed greatly. It had shed its original immaturity and was even more magnetic. Those who were not familiar with Chen Hao naturally could not tell that this was Chen Hao's voice. However, when Helian Wuxi and Mo Yue heard this voice, their hearts trembled and they suddenly looked towards the sky. Boss! Ah! Before most people could recognize who it was, the cold and taciturn Mo Yue had already cried out excitedly. And Helian Wuxi, who was known as the Ice Beauty, actually trembled and cried out excitedly. Chen Hao! This is Chen Hao! So strong! Even Mo Yue calls him boss. Other than Chen Hao, who else could it be? Did he come out from the remains? Martial Emperor! The crowd suddenly burst into bursts of exclamations. Even the experts among the senior disciples frowned at this moment. Chen Hao didn't release his aura, but it was precisely because his aura was so restrained that even they couldn't sense it, that they were shocked. Even Dongfang Jian, who was originally arrogant in front of Chen Hao, narrowed his eyes. First update. Brothers and sisters, please vote for Dark Mountain with your monthly votes. Today will definitely be the third update. Please. Wu Shan crawls away and writes with all his strength. Whether or not he can defend his chrysanthemum will depend on his brothers and sisters. Please. Chapter 110. Begging for monthly votes, I need them very much, urgently need them. Thank you. It's you. Dongfang Jun looked at Chen Hao, who slowly descended onto the stage. His face no longer had the same expression he had when he faced Helian Wuxi. His gaze was gloomy and his expression was clearly shocked as he stared at Chen Hao. It's me. Chen Hao's eyes were as bright as the stars as they shone with sharpness. I never thought that you would be able to come out alive. Very good. A year and a half ago, you actually dared to injure my people while I was in seclusion trying to break through to Martial Emperor. Humph. Today, I, Dongfang Jun, will make you pay back 100-fold. Don't think that you can be arrogant in front of me just because you obtained the inheritance of the remnants and became a Martial Emperor. Go ahead, aren't your sword techniques very powerful? Today, I, Dongfang Jun, will compete with you in sword techniques. Clang. As Dongfang Jun spoke, he unsheathed his sword and his expression became serious. Although he spoke arrogantly, he did not look down on Chen Hao in the slightest. His sharp intuition allowed him to sense a dangerous aura from Chen Hao. Up to you. Chen Hao said in a deep voice. At the same time, he grabbed at the weapons near the rostrum, and an ordinary sword flew into his hand through the air. It can't be. He doesn't even have his own sword. Chen Hao's actions immediately caused countless disciples below the stage to feel astonished. The instructors on the platform also frowned slightly. Below the stage, Helian Wuxi, Mo Yue, and Fang Qing, who was acquainted with Chen Hao, held their breaths. They never thought that Chen Hao would return at this moment. Even more so, they never thought that Chen Hao would directly step onto the stage and challenge the powerful Dongfang Jun. It would not be an exaggeration to say that the rank 5 Martial Emperor Dongfang Jun's battle power was comparable to the experts among the advanced disciples. Otherwise, he would not have been allowed to become the master of the stage to train the disciples who had obtained the qualifications for the rookie competition. This caused the three of them to be on edge. Especially Helian Wuxi and Mo Yue. I'm afraid that Chen Hao is in danger. Dongfang Jun hasn't even used a weapon yet, and his strength is already so strong. Moreover, it is said that Dongfang Jun's strongest point is his sword skills, which are unfathomable. That's right. Look at Dongfang Jun's treasured sword. That's second only to a spirit sword. This Chen Hao doesn't even have his own sword. However, this Chen Hao is definitely not simple. Since Dongfang Jun uses a sword, it can be seen that he is very concerned about him. That's true. Dongfang Jun's eyes gradually turned cold. He slowly raised the tip of his sword and pointed it at Chen Hao. His body was as straight as a sword, his fighting spirit rising. His white robes fluttered without any wind. Just this posture alone caused the spectators to feel an enormous pressure. Chen Hao, who was standing 10 feet away, had a cold expression on his face. However, at this moment, he calmly unsheathed his sword. I can feel that you are indeed very strong, even though you have restrained your aura. To be able to make me, Dongfang Jun, draw my sword, is enough for you to be proud. Dongfang Jun stared at Chen Hao and said arrogantly and coldly. Don't blame me for not warning you. Go all out. Chen Hao said with a calm expression. As he spoke, he slowly released the aura that he had restrained. Buzz. Blue-colored origin power immediately poured into the sword, causing the sword in his hand to emit a violent trembling sound. Rank 5 Martial Emperor. Cries of alarm immediately burst forth from the crowd. Dongfang Jun's eyes also abruptly shrunk. His arrogant expression finally turned serious. Amazing, this Chen Hao has actually become a rank 5 martial emperor after being in the remnants for a year and a half. This is going to be lively. The instructors on the platform immediately looked to each other and spoke with a trace of admiration and excitement. Let's begin. Hiss. Dongfang Jun's body moved. Like an unsheathed treasured sword, he charged toward Chen Hao with lightning speed. At the same time, Chen Hao also brandished his sword to meet Dongfang Jun's attack. The distance of over 10 feet was closed by the two of them at the same time. In an instant, they had closed the distance of 2 feet. Hiss. Hiss. Resplendent sword rays were emitted from Dongfang Jun's treasured sword. Although they appeared slow, they were actually very fast. Layers upon layers of sword images appeared. Every single sword ray contained an incomparably sharp power. No one was able to tell whether the sword rays were real or where they were attacking. Unfathomable. When Dongfang Jun attacked, he confirmed the rumors. He was definitely an expert in the path of the sword. This guy does indeed have the qualifications to be arrogant. Chen Hao thought in his heart. Even Mo Yui, who had comprehended sword intent and became a true swordsman, had his eyes abruptly shrunk. Before the nervous gazes of Mo Yui, Helian Wuzi and the others, Chen Hao finally unleashed his sword at the moment when the sword rays were about to reach him. Buzz. Sword rays gushed out. Simple, berserk and without any fancy movements. It was as if it could not be compared to Dongfang Jun's sword skill. However, when the sword pierced out, with a ding sound, it hit a vital point and caused all of Dongfang Jun's resplendent and sharp sword images to miss, rumble. The dispersed sword chi was like a bomb that detonated the entire stage. On the hard rock ground, a total of 18 deep and several feet long gullies appeared. Stone fragments swirled in the air and dust billowed. Although Dongfang Jun's sword was broken by Chen Hao, the power of this sword was so shocking that it caused many of the spectating disciples below the stage to suck in a breath of cold air. Sky-splitting sword. Dongfang Jun did not stop in the slightest. With a change of sword stance, it was extremely crafty. As if it was tearing apart the void, the sword pierced out. Its speed was as fast as lightning. Even Chen Hao did not expect the opponent's sword skill to be so fast. At this moment, Chen Hao felt an incomparably sharp sword chi locking onto his wrist that was holding the sword. Without any time to hesitate, Chen Hao's eyes turned sharp. With a flick of his wrist, sword rays instantly exploded. Ding 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 ding, rumble rumble rumble, a series of dense sounds of metal colliding rang out, accompanied by violent explosions of origin energy. The figures of the two of them flew up into the sky, rising up and down. For a moment, they descended onto the arena, and in the next moment, they were in the air. Up and down, they were using speed to overcome speed, causing everyone to be dazzled. They were completely unable to clearly see how many sword strikes the two of them had struck out in an instant. Only the wanton sword light rumbled and rumbled on the arena within a 300 m radius, leaving behind numerous deep ravines. What a fast speed! Is there enough time to react? Too amazing. This Chen Hao's cultivation in the sword Dao is not inferior to Dongfang Jun's. So fast. This is not just fast. The stage is about to be torn apart by the two of them. Dongfang Jun is about to lose, an instructor on the rostrum suddenly said softly as he stared at the two rapidly moving figures. Not necessarily. Although Dongfang Jun has not condensed sword intent, his talent in the sword Dao is second to none in the Dongfang family. Even Dongfang Jun cannot compare to him in this aspect. Moreover, he has not used his ultimate move yet. According to what I know, during the Dongfang family grand competition half a year ago, he had already comprehended the Dongfang family's highest sword skill, the stellar sword technique, to the 13th sword. He has only used the 9th sword now. When he uses the 13th sword, it will be enough to defeat Chen Hao. Not necessarily. Right now, Dongfang Jun has already been suppressed, and I feel that Chen Hao hasn't used his full strength yet. The sword skills he's using are even more bizarre. I've never seen anything like it before. It seems like every move is able to accurately attack Dongfang Jun's flaws. Such exquisite sword skills are truly rare. Boom! Right at this moment, Dongfang Jun suddenly activated his sword, bursting out a terrifying sword light, forcing Chen Hao to take 2 steps back. Dongfang Jun's figure suddenly floated backwards, landing on the ground. His expression was solemn as he stared at Chen Hao. I didn't expect your sword skills to be so strong. However, it's impossible for you to defeat me. Now, I'll let you experience my true strength. You can admit defeat now. Otherwise, don't blame me if I seriously injure or kill you, because I can't control it. This was indeed the case. Although Dongfang Jun could not wait to kill Chen Hao, the two of them were exchanging pointers in the arena. Moreover, Dongfang Jun knew that with Chen Hao's current strength, he would definitely become the focus of the new show hall's training. He would also be one of the main forces in the upcoming rookie list competition of the 8 nations. This was related to the honor and face of the Zhenyuan kingdom. If he killed Chen Hao at this time, then even if he was a disciple of the Dongfang family and a top genius, he would not be able to escape punishment, but now, he had made it clear. If Chen Hao did not know when to back down, then he could not be blamed. Go ahead and attack. Chen Hao said coldly. His fighting spirit surged, and he was not afraid at all. Wait. Just as Dongfang Jun took a step forward and an incomparably sharp aura erupted from his body, a dignified voice suddenly drifted over. Before the voice arrived, the person had already appeared between Chen Hao and Dongfang Jun. The rookie list competition of the 8 nations is about to begin. Both of your strengths are worth looking forward to. Now is not the time to fight with your lives on the line. The person who came emitted a valiant aura that directly enveloped Dongfang Jun and Chen Hao. He said in a dignified voice, if you want to compete, then do it during the rookie list competition. The rankings decide everything. That's all for today. Chen Hao, you will be the main challenger for the advanced group tomorrow. How about it? Hua, the old man's words instantly caused an uproar. This old man was none other than precisely the new show hall's #1 expert, the new show hall's hall master. With the powerful combat strength that Dongfang Jun displayed, he was only the main challenger for the elementary group. But now, the hall master actually let Chen Hao be the main challenger for the advanced group. Could it be that Chen Hao was even stronger than Dongfang Jun? Even Chen Hao was slightly stunned when he heard the hall master's words. Of course, the 3 hall's chief disciples are not allowed to participate. With your realm and combat strength, it should be enough to the other disciples. Similarly, it's also a very good tempering opportunity for you. Dongfang Jun, you'll be the main challenger for the intermediate group tomorrow. The 3 halls' chief disciples can all participate. Zhao Yunfei, you'll be the main challenger for the elementary group. Remember, you can't be seriously injured. There are still 6 days' time before we set off. Tempering is fine, but it cannot affect the rookie list competition. All of you are very strong this year. Old Man is very much looking forward to your performance in the rookie competition. A soul-stirring battle was forcefully resolved by the Hall Master just like that. Dongfang Jun was naturally extremely frustrated, especially when Chen Hao was the main challenger for the advanced group. Although he did not let the chief disciples go on stage, it still made him feel ashamed. But there was no other way. No matter how arrogant he was, he did not dare to go against the Hall Master. And Chen Hao was also extremely frustrated. Dongfang Jun's powerful combat strength was undoubtedly a good tempering when he did not use his mental strength. He was also very much looking forward to what Dongfang Jun's ultimate move was. But he could not see it for the time being. However, being able to be the main challenger for the advanced group tomorrow made him feel slightly comforted. Second update. Requesting monthly votes for support. Many thanks. Dark Mountain will continue to write the 3rd chapter. Please, if you like this work, you are welcome to come to Chidian. Chapter 111. Begging for monthly votes, begging for subscriptions. I'm sincerely kneeling, I really need, please, my dearest. Seeing Chen Hao slowly walking over, Moe's entire body trembled. He was indescribably excited. Helian Wuzi's beautiful eyes stared blankly at the unfamiliar yet familiar Chen Hao. Her heart trembled slightly. She, who was in the prime of her youth, had an ice-cold and emotionless appearance. She was like an iceberg that kept people 1,000 miles away. However, this change only happened after Chen Hao molested her. In the past, after she was humiliated by Chen Hao, she had indeed always wanted to ruthlessly step on Chen Hao under her feet. She wanted to use Chen Hao to publicly humiliate her. However, fate had mysteriously brought the 2 of them to the same battle line. As their interactions increased, a subtle change occurred in her mentality. Especially since Chen Hao did not seem to treat her as a woman at all. He even specially trained her in certain aspects. However, the more he did so, the less hatred she had in her heart. Boss, you've finally returned. Moe said emotionally. Helian Wuzi only stared at Chen Hao. A rarely seen faint blush appeared on her ice-cold and beautiful little face. Congratulations, junior brother. I truly did not expect that in a year and a half's time, you would actually advance to such a level. Right now, you're even more powerful than me. Fang Qing, who was with the 2 of them, said in a natural and unrestrained manner. I was just lucky. Senior Zora, you must have already advanced to the Intent Emperor realm, right? The battle power of the Intent Emperor realm is very strong. No matter how strong they are, they can't be stronger than you, a rank 5 martial emperor. Let's go, we'll talk as we walk. Fang Qing said with a smile. Chen Hao, who had just returned, did not know that in the past year or so, Helian Wuzi and Moe had been in Fang Qing's little team. Thus, when he heard Fang Qing's words, he looked at Helian Wuzi and Moe with slight confusion. In this period of time, it was all thanks to Uncle Huang and Senior Fang Qing's care. Otherwise, little Mo and I. Helian Wuzi said. There's no need to talk about taking care of you. Your grandpa's personal disciples. This is what a senior sister should do. Fang Qing said with a smile. Then, she looked at Chen Hao and said in a low voice, Junior brother, the Dongfang family has become lawless because of the appearance of a peerless master. Even the royal family can't do anything about it, so, you should restrain yourself for the time being. You can't be too ruthless when dealing with Dongfang Jun and the others. With junior brother's current cultivation and combat strength, you will definitely obtain a rather good ranking in the rookie ranking competition. In another 2 years, you might even obtain the qualifications to participate in the 100 Empire ranking competition. As long as you appear on the 100 Empire ranking competition, you will have the chance to become a supreme existence. At that time, no matter how arrogant Dongfang Jun is, he will not dare to snatch little Wu from you. Cough cough, Chen Hao was originally listening attentively. Although he knew about the rookie ranking, 100 Empire ranking, and dragon transformation ranking from Xia Yuyu, he only knew that he had to go through layers upon layers of competition before he could enter the world of true experts. But Xia Yuyu didn't know the specific situation and didn't care much about it. So when Fang Qing mentioned it, he was rather interested. But when she said, "I don't dare to snatch little Wu from you," Chen Hao immediately coughed awkwardly. Helian Wuzi's face was completely red. She opened her mouth to speak but didn't know what to say. Mo Yui had a calm expression, as if what Fang Qing said was the truth. Chen Hao was too lazy to explain. This kind of thing would only make things worse. He directly changed the topic and said, "Senior sister, in the rookie ranking competition of the 8 countries, what rank do you need to obtain to be qualified to participate in the 100 Empire ranking competition?" The qualifications for the 100 Empire ranking competition is more complicated. The rookie ranking competition of the 8 countries is not the real rookie ranking competition. There's still true and false. The 8 countries that hold the rookie ranking competition of the 8 countries are all vassal states of the Xuanwu Empire. If you can obtain the top 10 of the rookie ranking competition of the 8 countries, you will be qualified to participate in the Xuanwu Empire's rookie ranking competition. Among the many geniuses of the Xuanwu Empire, if you obtain the top 5, you will be qualified to participate in the 100 Empire ranking competition. You are only 15 years old and still have a few years. You definitely have a chance. Xiao Wu, Xiao Mo, and I all have a chance, but we will definitely be 2 years later than you. A short period of 10 days passed by quickly. After Chen Hao was in the main arena for a day, he did not participate in the so-called arena training anymore. This was because all the disciples who obtained the qualifications to participate in the competition would be given special permission to choose the most suitable technique for them in the unique art library according to their cultivation level. Chen Hao originally came back late. There were only 10 days left. If he wanted to comprehend a technique, even if he was extremely talented, it was difficult to do so. However, what surprised Chen Hao was that the hall master of the Royal New Show Hall actually directly removed the restriction on the secret technique manual that Chen Hao had chosen. This allowed Chen Hao to see all the mantras before he comprehended them. Chen Hao directly went into seclusion for more than 10 days. On this day, the sun was shining brightly. Among the nearly 2,000 disciples of the Royal New Show Hall, there were only 35 outstanding disciples who had obtained the qualifications to participate in the rookie list of the 8 countries. 35 people, including the hall master, 2 deputy hall masters, the gatekeeper Uncle Huang Qi, and an enchanting figure that surprised Chen Hao, embarked on the journey to the rookie list of the 8 countries. Whoosh, all the disciples of the Emperor realm rose into the air and set off for the powerful Tortoise Empire. "Sister Fian, why are you here?" After flying into the air, the enchanting figure that surprised Chen Hao smiled and went directly to the small group of Chen Hao, Fang Qing, Helian Wuzi, Mo Yui, and Lu Yunfeng. Fang Qing was obviously very familiar with this person and asked in surprise. This enchanting figure was none other than Yunfian, whom he had met once before. With so many free experts as bodyguards, Big Sister will go and join in the fun. While I'm at it, I'll also go to the Tortoise Empire to purchase some things, Yunfian lightly smiled and said in a very flirtatious manner. As she spoke, her beautiful eyes looked at Chen Hao without any misgivings. With a flash, she arrived beside Chen Hao and said, "Little junior brother, we haven't seen each other for over a year. Did you miss me? You've truly surprised me." I've heard that you've become a rank 5 martial emperor. Not only did your strength increase astonishingly, you've also become more and more handsome, That intimate voice and those affectionate words caused Chen Hao to have a headache. He was speechless. Fang Qing was also slightly surprised. She did not expect that Yunfian actually knew Chen Hao. As for Helian Wuzi, her ice-cold little face slightly frowned. She seemed to be unable to restrain herself from looking at Yunfian with a trace of hostility. You must be little Wu, right? What a beautiful little girl. No wonder little junior brother doesn't even bother to pay attention to a great beauty like me. The extremely astute Yunfian was truly too amazing. With just a casual sentence, she managed to cause Helian Wuzi's face to turn red and her hostility to disappear. With the experienced and knowledgeable Yunfian accompanying them, even though it was a boring flight, Chen Hao, Fang Qing, and the others did not feel bored in the slightest. Every time they passed by a place, Yunfian would tell them about it. To Chen Hao and the others who had never traveled far before, this was extremely useful. Dongfang Jian, Zhao Yunlong and Bai Lishi were the head disciples of the 3 great palaces. They were also the people who had the greatest hope of entering the top 10 among the 35 disciples. They were all rank 8 martial emperors. Chen Hao, Dongfang Jun and Zhao Yunfei were the most outstanding. Although they had no hope of entering the top 10, the 3 of them were still young and had plenty of time. In the competition 2 years later, they would definitely be able to shine brilliantly. There were also Zhuge Qinyun, Helian Wuzi, and Mo Yui, who were slightly inferior but also had great hope. Before they set off, the hall master had repeatedly emphasized that their mission this time was only to participate. There was no need to care too much about their ranking. If their lives were to be in danger, they must admit defeat. That was because there were no rules or restrictions in the new talent ranking competition. One was responsible for their own life and death. Only by admitting defeat could one preserve their life. From this, one could imagine how intense the competition would be. I can finally have no misgivings. Chen Hao stared at the rapidly retreating mountains below him. His pitch-black eyes were shining brightly. From the Xiao family until now, although the cultivation environment of the Royal New Show Hall had changed greatly, Chen Hao still felt a sense of oppression. That sort of oppression was unable to allow him to do as he pleased. He had to be cautious and careful at every step. Just like when he faced the disciples of the Dongfang family. Even though he had countless opportunities to kill them, he could not kill them as he pleased. This was because both parties were restrained. Although Dongfang Jun was arrogant, he did not dare to go to the extreme. As for Chen Hao, he did not dare to do so either. However, the rookie ranking had no rules and would not affect the people around him or his family. This made Chen Hao excited from the bottom of his heart. After jumping out of the Zhenyuan kingdom, he no longer had any misgivings. As long as he was strong enough, the Zhenyuan kingdom would always be his family and friends' backing. Unless the Zhenyuan kingdom was destroyed, no one in the Zhenyuan kingdom would dare to touch his family and friends. For 6 days and 6 nights, other than the necessary recovery and meditation, the group didn't delay at all. They flew over 100,000 kilometers in the sky, crossed countless mountains, rivers, towns, and wilderness, and finally stepped into the vast Xuanwu Empire, which was full of outstanding people. Gazing at the sometimes undulating mountains, sometimes flat plains, and sometimes rivers and lakes, the disciples who walked out of the Zhenyuan kingdom for the first time were all amazed by the rich, prosperous scenery. In particular, the heaven and earth spirit energy seemed to be getting thicker and thicker, which made these disciples feel the poverty of the Zhenyuan kingdom. After several hours, a vast and majestic city that stretched as far as the eye could see appeared in front of everyone's eyes. Looking from afar, there were thousands of rays of light above the city, and the aura of treasures soared into the sky. It was many times more powerful than the Zhenyuan kingdom's Deqian city. This is the capital of the Xuanwu kingdom, Longyuan city. It is also the location of the rookie ranking competition of the 8 kingdoms. The Xuanwu Kingdom has a total of 32 vassal kingdoms, and 8 kingdoms form a group to determine the top 10 to qualify for the Black Tortoise Kingdom's rookie ranking competition. There are only 40 of the 32 vassal kingdoms. Every province in the Xuanwu Kingdom has one. There are a total of 82 provinces, and each major faction in the capital has 10. In other words, there will be 132 participants in the rookie ranking competition. The Hall Master, who was flying at the front, suddenly turned around and said to everyone, "In the past 20 years of our Zhenyuan kingdom, the one with the best results is Dongfang Ting of the Dongfang family. She is also the only disciple who passed through layers of selections to qualify for the 100 Empire ranking competition. Furthermore, she performed well in the 100 Empire ranking competition and became a disciple of a powerful sect. She is your role model. This time, our hopes are placed on Dongfang Jian, Zhao Yunlong, and Bai Lishi." Third update. The truly exciting world is about to begin. The painful low martial realm and the restrictive environment will also disappear. Passion is about to arrive. Brothers and sisters, please give your monthly votes to Dark Mountain. Please believe that Proud Heaven will soon be exciting. Dark Mountain will fight with all its might. Begging for monthly votes, begging for subscriptions. Please. If you like this work, you are welcome to come to Chidian. Come to give your recommendation votes and monthly votes. Chapter 112. First update. Begging for monthly votes, recommendation votes, gifts, subscriptions. Please, brothers and sisters. Hall Master, don't worry. I, Dongfang Jian, am definitely not inferior to her. Dongfang Jian said proudly. His words didn't have the slightest respect for Dongfang Ting, and even contained hatred. TSK. You want to surpass my aunt with that talent of yours? Dream on. Don't throw away your life. Dongfang Jun mocked in disdain. Now isn't the time for you to bicker. The Hall Master's expression changed slightly, obviously dissatisfied with the two of them. He continued, "This is also the last chance for the three of you. So, unlike them, you must fight. With the strength of the three of you, it's not like you don't have a chance. Alright, after entering Dragon Lake City, don't go anywhere. Adjust yourselves to your best condition and fight for the honor of our Zhenyuan kingdom." Aya, isn't this Brother Zhao? Not bad, there are actually over 30 people who meet the requirements. Compared to our Deqian kingdom, you are only 10 or so people less. When you return, don't be too little, ha. When Chen Hao and the rest followed the Hall Master into a vast and magnificent palace, the Deputy Hall Master of the New Excellence Hall of the Deqian Kingdom, who was bringing in the registration information of the disciples, spoke to the Hall Master Zhao Xingchen with a smile when he saw Chen Hao and the rest. His words were filled with ridicule. Quality is more important than quantity. I'm afraid you won't even have half of them when you return. The new show Hall Master Zhao Xingchen's expression didn't change in the slightest as he said indifferently. The disciples of both sides sized each other up and unrestrainedly emitted their perception to check each other's cultivation. Their expressions were arrogant as they opposed each other with equal harshness. Zhao Yunfei, who was emitting a dense killing intent, directly locked his gaze onto the crown prince of the Deqian kingdom, Yi Mingho. The killing intent on his body suddenly soared countless times and spread out as if it was material. Yi Mingho's expression was indifferent as the corners of his mouth curled up into a slight smile. He was filled with disdain as he gave Zhao Yunfei a thumbs down before turning his gaze towards the three experts, Dongfang Jian, Zhao Yunlong, and Bai Lishi. His meaning was obvious. His target wasn't a nobody like Zhao Yunfei. The competition hadn't started, but the smell of gunpowder filled the air. After Chen Hao's gaze slowly swept over the other side's more than 40 disciples, he was slightly surprised. The other side had more than 40 people. Not only did they far outnumber the Zhenyuan kingdom, but their overall strength was also stronger than theirs. Fortunately, the top experts were equally matched. Really? The next Rising Star competition would be 2 years later. 2 years was too long. Huff, Chen Hao, Helian Wuzi, Moue, Fang Qing, Lu Yunfeng, and the alluring senior sister Yunfian, who stuck close to them, chose a room that was adjacent to each other. After entering the room alone, they directly sat down cross-legged in the cultivation room and let out a long sigh of relief. His eyes that flickered with intense fighting spirit and radiance slowly closed as he entered the cultivation state. 3 days later, he would begin the real battle. A battle without any scruples. The winner would be the king, and the loser would be the bandit. A battle where the strong preyed on the weak. There were no restrictions, no scruples. There was only the simplest and most direct battle. 3 days passed by in the blink of an eye. A wisp of the fiery red morning sun slowly rose from the east. The core training grounds of the Empire's new Excellence Hall in the east, west, north, and south regions of Dragon Lake City were already filled with dense crowds of people. These people were all people of the Xuanwu Empire who were either rich or noble, and had respected statuses. Moreover, a large portion of them had dual identities. They were important figures of the Xuanwu Empire, but their origins were from various kingdoms. Therefore, they had become spectators of the new talent ranking preliminaries of the vassal kingdoms. The 32 vassal kingdoms were divided into 4 groups. The top 10 of each group would advance to the true new talent ranking competition of the Xuanwu Empire. Little junior brother, do your best. Senior sister has high hopes for you. Although the top 10 is a little difficult, the top 3 of the group is definitely not a problem. When the hall master Zhao Xingqian, the 2 vice hall masters, and Huang Qi led Chen Hao and the other disciples into the incomparably enormous practice grounds, the enchanting senior sister Yunfian moved closer to Chen Hao's ear and whispered in a low voice. It caused Chen Hao's ear to itch, but he had no way to deal with this enthusiastic senior sister. Big sister Fian, junior brother Chen Hao's participation is important this time. Don't use your honey trap to encourage him. If an accident were to happen, it would be bad. Fang Qing, who was at the side, immediately pulled Yunfian and said. However, Yunfian smiled sweetly and stared at Fang Qing. She said confidently, "Little girl, you don't understand. Little junior brother isn't as simple as you think. Do you dare to make a bet with big sister? Big sister will bet that little junior brother can enter the top 3 of the group." Really? Fang Qing asked with a little surprise. She understood Yunfian very well. Her judgment of people was definitely many times more accurate than ordinary people. No one had ever won a bet with her. Using grandfather's words, Yunfian was a little shrew. What do you think? I know you don't dare to bet. Just wait and see, hee hee. Yunfian raised her charming chin and smiled with a trace of delight. Chen Hao shrugged and could only obediently shut his mouth. He didn't know what Yunfian saw that made her so certain that he could enter the top 3 of the group. However, Chen Hao couldn't refute because his goal was higher. Even at this moment, he wasn't sure if he could do it. However, he would do his best and even expose some of his trump cards. Everyone, today's Rising Star preliminaries will officially begin. In this division, the Qian Kingdom has 48 contestants, the Jian Kingdom has 39 contestants. Jinyuan Kingdom has 35 contestants, a total of 298 contestants. They will be divided into 10 groups. According to the information, the designated number 1 experts of the 8 kingdoms will be divided into groups 1 to 8. The other contestants will draw lots to determine their groups. Let's start according to the order of the kingdoms we just pointed out. At the end of the 7-hour period, the head of the arbitration team announced in a vigorous voice without the slightest bit of hesitation. There were a total of 292 numbers in the lottery box. Groups 1 to 8 had 29 numbers each, while groups 9 and 10 had 30 numbers each. After everyone had drawn lots, there would be 2 empty numbers left. It was very fair. The first place of each group would advance to the top 10 and obtain the qualifications for the Rising Star preliminaries. The members of the arbitration team were the Hall Masters and Vice Hall Masters of the 8 Kingdoms' new show hall. The head of the arbitration team was an expert appointed by Xuanwu Kingdom. The designated number 1 expert of Jinyuan Kingdom was Dongfang Jian. This was also the result of the previous year-end competition. Dongfang Jian narrowly defeated Zhao Yunlong and Bai Lishi and obtained the position of chief disciple of the new show hall. The lottery ended very quickly. Chen Hao didn't draw the 9th and 10th groups that didn't have any seated experts. He was in the 4th group. Heli and Wuxi and Moue actually drew the same group, the 9th group. Number 23 of the 4th group. Luckily, otherwise, senior sister might have guessed wrongly. After seeing the number in Chen Hao's hand, Yunfian let out a sigh of relief. Everyone already knew the rules of the lottery and the order of the competition. The lot drawn had a group and sequence number. It could directly determine the order of appearance and their opponents. First group, Yi Mingho from the Great Qian Kingdom and Zhuge Qinyun from the Jinyuan Kingdom, please come up. When the results of the lottery came out, the referee didn't delay and stood on the incomparably huge stage as he shouted loudly. What? Yi Mingho is actually the chief disciple of the Great Qian Kingdom? How is this possible? How old is he? Could it be because of the crown prince's status? That's not possible. After all, this is a real competition, and the Great Qian Kingdom wouldn't treat it as a game. It seems like Yi Mingho's combat strength is really strong. This disciple from the Jinyuan Kingdom is going to suffer. The usually calm and indifferent Zhuge Qinyun had an unsightly expression. When he saw the number in his hand, he had the urge to vomit blood. Number 2 of the first group meant that he would be the first to go up on stage. Furthermore, his opponent was a seeded contestant from the strongest of the 8 kingdoms, the Great Qian Kingdom. This meant that he basically only had one chance to go up on stage in this rookie selection competition. Anyone would be depressed if they were in his position. My brothers and sisters, monthly votes, please. If you don't have monthly votes, please give me a recommendation vote. It's a new week, and it's a little boring. Today, the Dark Mountain will still fight hard. Please, everyone, give me some encouragement and stimulation. Please. Chapter 113. Update 2, requesting monthly votes and recommendation votes. My monthly votes are in imminent danger. I sincerely request my brothers and sisters to lend a helping hand to Dark Mountain. I can't thank you enough. Friends without monthly votes, can you give me a recommendation vote? Thanks. At the participant seating area of the Great Qian Kingdom, Yi Mingho took a step forward and left behind an afterimage as he appeared in the center of the 200 feet wide giant stage. The afterimage seemed to be standing on the same spot, but Yi Mingho's real body was already standing proudly in the center of the stage. It could be seen how fast his speed was. Just this small move that he revealed made many self-proclaimed geniuses feel astonished. Yi Mingho, who wasn't even 16 years old, had a handsome appearance with red lips and white teeth. His forehead was wider than an ordinary person's, and his eyes were as sharp as a sword as he emitted a proud and confident radiance. He was dressed in luxurious clothes and stood with his hands behind his back. Naturally, he gave off the aura of a king that stood above others and looked down on the world. This kid has outstanding talent and is definitely not someone ordinary. To become the head disciple of the Great Qian Kingdom at such a young age, he must be extraordinary. That's right. That fulgurating shadows movement technique earlier isn't simple. It seems like there's no doubt that he will obtain first place in the first group. At the edge of the rostrum, a few expert referees spoke softly. Be careful. If there's a need, immediately admit defeat. The gatekeeper, eldest uncle Huangqi, took on the role of the instructor and patted Zhuge Qingyun, who had an unsightly expression, as he spoke. N. Zhuge Qingyun replied as his eyes flashed with a trace of radiance as he jumped onto the stage. Although he knew that he would lose and that he might encounter a life-threatening situation, no one was willing to accept the humiliation of surrendering without a fight. Especially since this was the first match of the tournament. When the referee saw that the two of them were in position, he immediately announced the start of the match. Boom! Zhuge Qingyun acted as though he was facing a great enemy as he instantly activated his protective aura and unsheathed his sword. Humph! You still dare to come up and fight? Your courage is commendable. Get lost! Yi Mingho spoke in a domineering manner. The moment he finished speaking, he took a step forward and actually sent out a palm strike from a distance of 300 feet. Even the air didn't have any ripples, but when most of the disciples with lower cultivation were astonished, a loud boom exploded in front of Zhuge Qingyun. Ah! A miserable shriek was accompanied by a mouthful of blood. Zhuge Qingyun didn't even have the time to swing his sword and was sent flying like a kite with a broken string. At this moment, Yun Mingho, who had unleashed a light palm strike, was slowly fading away. That was only an afterimage. One move, just one move. From start to finish, no one had seen Yi Mingho's energy fluctuations, but the battle had already ended. The outcome of the match was expected, but the process was unexpected. Zhuge Qingyun's internal organs were severely injured, and he was only left with half a breath. Huang Qi had a gloomy expression as he caught Zhuge Qingyun and carried him back to the Zhenyuan Kingdom's region. After feeding him a dark green recuperation elixir, Huang Qi slowly channeled energy to help him recuperate. At the same time, he looked at the astonished disciples and said, "All of you have witnessed the cruelty of the rookie competition. This is a true battle. No one from the opposing faction will show mercy." Zhuge Qingyun's reaction was rather fast and luckily managed to preserve his life. Hall Master has already emphasized what should be emphasized, but what this old man wants to say is that even though it is cruel, if you are frightened before the battle even starts, then you will never be able to make a name for yourselves. Think about it carefully. After a brief treatment, Huang Qi handed Zhuge Qingyun over to the Xuanwu Empire's specially appointed attendant and sent him back to his residence to recuperate. Immediately after, the second group's number 1 and number 2 went up, and the competition wasn't affected at all. Huang Qi acted as the commentator and explained the characteristics of the various absolute arts while fighting on the stage. Of course, he also explained the horrifying absolute art that Yun Mingho had just executed. The shifting shadows was a grade 13 agility martial technique. When cultivated to the highest realm, the speed would be astonishing and like a ghost. It could leave behind 18 lifelike afterimages to confuse the opponent and prevent them from distinguishing the real from the fake. Yun Mingho might have only left behind an afterimage, but based on the speed that Yun Mingho displayed, Huang Qi determined that Yun Mingho must have cultivated the shifting shadows to the phenomenal stage. The first 8 matches were astonishingly fast. The 8 chief disciples of the various empires didn't encounter any formidable opponents and ended the battle in at least 1 move and at most 3 moves. As for the opponents, 1 died, 5 were severely injured, and 2 admitted defeat. Compared to the dead disciple, the severely injured Zhuge Qingyun was still considered lucky. Yunfian and Helian Wuzi sat on the left and right of Chen Hao at the participants' seating area. When Huang Qi was explaining, Yunfian would pause for a moment. When Huang Qi didn't speak, Yunfian would explain to Chen Hao and the others in a soft voice. Yunfian was only a grade 4E emperor. Her cultivation might not be comparable to Chen Hao, but her knowledge was far from what Chen Hao could compare with. When the 2 great beauties appeared on the stage at the same time, it caused a breath of fresh air to be injected into the martial practice ground that was filled with the stench of blood. The eyes of many people started to shine, Fang Qing had a serious expression on her face. As for Ran Miao Miao, the corners of her mouth rose into a faint and enchanting smile. Merely, the battle intent and cold aura in her eyes were something that anyone could see. Match, begin. Following the loud shout from the referee, a pure and boundless spirit power shone from the center of Fang Qing's brows. It formed layers upon layers of spirit power several meters around her. She did not seek to win, she only sought not to make any mistakes. Even though her opponent was only a rank 6 martial emperor, she was a disciple of Jingyun Empire's #1 clan. With a difference of 3 levels of cultivation between them, even Fang Qing herself knew that she had no chance of victory. This battle could only be considered as a form of tempering. Whoosh! 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 To everyone's surprise, Ran Miao Miao actually flicked her wrist and shot out countless resplendent sword rays. In an instant, the area 10 meters around Fang Qing was completely covered by sword rays. Even more shockingly, Ran Miao Miao's sword rays seemed to have formed an enormous sword net of light that sealed off all of Fang Qing's escape routes. The boundless origin energy contained within the sword rays had formed something similar to a protective aura, not good. Huang Qi's expression immediately changed. He stood up in shock. In practically an instant, Huang Qi discovered his opponent's intention. Yunfian's expression also changed. A trace of fear immediately flashed through her charming eyes. So ruthless. Huang Qi and Yunfian said at practically the same time. At the beginning, Chen Hao was stunned. However, after an instant, his expression turned cold. His sharp and powerful perception spread over. Chen Hao clearly sensed that at this moment, his opponent's sword rays that contained boundless origin energy seemed to have formed a barrier around Fang Qing's body. Even if Fang Qing wanted to admit defeat, she would likely be drowned by the rumbling sounds of the explosion. Similarly, no one could see Fang Qing's movements. Unable to survive. In her nervousness, Yunfian involuntarily grabbed onto Chen Hao's arm. Fang Qing was her master Fang Yuan's most beloved granddaughter. If she were to die in battle, however, there was no one who could help Fang Qing right now. Whether or not she could escape would depend on herself. No one had expected that Ran Miao Miao, who was only a rank 6 martial emperor, would be so powerful. Meteor sword. Bang! Ran Miao Miao took a step forward and fused with her sword. A resplendent blue light flashed through the sky like a shooting star. In a flash, she rushed into the sword net. In the air, she was swinging her sword non-stop. Boom! Boom! Chapter 114. Third update. Pitiful, with only 5 monthly votes and less than 200 recommendation votes. Crying. Dear friends, is this all we have? Don't hesitate anymore. Vote for Dark Mountain. This is the source of Dark Mountain's motivation. Everyone should know that Dark Mountain is very, very thin-skinned. Every day, he would put his face in his pocket with every chapter. He would shamelessly beg for monthly votes, recommendations, rewards, subscriptions. You can imagine just how important this was to Dark Mountain. Really, this is the source of Dark Mountain's motivation. Brothers and sisters, oh God, give Dark Mountain passion, peng 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 peng. The moment Fang Qing screamed, the barrier formed by the powerful sword net suddenly let out a dense and terrifying explosion sound. It exploded in all directions, and an earth-shattering spiritual pressure spread out in all directions like a flash flood. Fang Qing appeared in front of everyone's eyes, her white robe fluttering in the wind, and her beautiful hair fluttering in the wind. Her originally elegant and refined little face was now red, and even her eyes were shining with a crimson light. Go to hell. Ran Miao Miao, who had become one with her sword, was only stopped for a moment. She once again advanced, and with a shout, she stabbed out with her sword. The brilliant sword light was incomparably swift and fierce. Fang Qing, who had just broken through the sword net, suffered a soul-tearing pain. She didn't have time to think. She slapped out with her palm towards the sword light that was already in front of her chest. At the same time, she abruptly activated her spiritual power and used all her strength to explosively retreat. Pang! Pooh! An arrow of blood dyed the sky red, and Fang Qing was sent flying out of the ring. Consider yourself lucky. Ran Miao Miao wiped the trace of blood from the corner of her mouth and said viciously. Fang Qing, who was a third-stage intent emperor, was only 18 years old. This kind of genius disciple was definitely a target that all the opposing forces wanted to kill. Killing one of them would reduce the opponent's strength in the future rookie competition. When she saw Fang Qing's information, Ran Miao Miao had already determined that Fang Qing would die. But she didn't expect that Fang Qing would use some kind of secret technique to increase her strength by 1-fold. She forcefully swung her sword away, and only heavily injured her shoulder. She used the force to explosively retreat, avoiding her fatal attack. Xiao Qing. When Huang Qi was about to make a move, Yunfian and Lu Yunfeng had already leaped out. They turned into a ray of light and directly caught the severely injured Fang Qing. Chen Hao, Helian Wuzi, and Moue also quickly came to Fang Qing's side. Without saying a word, Yun Fei Yen blocked Huang Qi's healing pill and directly took out a crystal clear, dark green, jujube-sized pill. It was obviously several times higher grade than Huang Qi's and stuffed it into Fang Qing's mouth. At the same time, she covered Fang Qing with her body and crushed a white pill into powder before applying it to Fang Qing's injured shoulder. The red light in Fang Qing's eyes gradually disappeared. She slowly closed her eyes and fell into a coma. She's fine, don't worry. Yunfian held Fang Qing in her arms and said to the crowd. After that, her slender, jade-like hand gently touched Fang Qing's head with a slight tremble. With a hiss, she pulled out the 3-inch-long needle at lightning speed. Helian Wuzi and Moue were dumbstruck and shocked. Little junior brother, you're in the same group as Xiao Qing. When you encounter that woman, you must be careful. Xiao Qing is a peak rank 3 intent emperor. If she didn't use the golden needle's soul-piercing technique, I'm afraid that she would have already. Yunfian looked at Chen Hao and said with a serious expression. Chen Hao frowned slightly. The golden needle soul-piercing technique is a secret technique that master possesses. You haven't started cultivating it yet. Thus, I haven't taught it to you yet. It's extremely powerful and can instantly increase your strength by 2 ranks. However, after using it, there will be a very serious backlash. Your divine soul will be injured and you won't be able to recover without half a year's time. It can only be used in a life and death situation. Xiao Qing's attack is definitely comparable to that of a rank 5 intent emperor. Without the cultivation of a rank 7 martial emperor, it's impossible to injure a rank 5 intent emperor. Thus, you must be careful. Chen Hao took a glance at Fang Qing's pale face and nodded. He did not say anything else. However, a trace of sharpness flashed through the depths of his black eyes. The cruel and bloody battle continued. The Zhenyuan kingdom seemed to have run into misfortune. Their strength was definitely above average among all the disciples. However, the opponents they encountered were stronger than them. Following that, several people went up to fight. Yet, not a single one of them won. Furthermore, they paid the price of another life. The others were all injured. Furthermore, the majority of them were seriously injured. It was only when Lu Yunfeng stepped onto the stage that they finally obtained a hard-won victory. Lu Yunfeng, a rank 3 intent emperor, managed to defeat a rank 6 martial emperor. Although he won, it was a very bitter victory. Perhaps it was because of Fang Qing's serious injury. The quiet, cultured and refined Lu Yunfeng, who had been following beside Fang Qing the entire time, seemed to have gone crazy. Especially after he found out that his opponent was from the Jingyun Empire, he immediately inserted a 3-inch long needle into his own head at the start of the battle. Jingyun Empire's rank 6 martial emperor, dead. Lu Yunfeng forced himself to walk off the stage and lost consciousness. The bitterness of the battle surpassed everyone's imagination. There were no survivors among the 8 kingdoms. Before the first round of elimination had even ended, at least 20 people had already died. The Zhenyuan kingdom had the most, 5 people. Including Chen Hao, all the disciples who had yet to participate in the battle were filled with fighting spirit. The blood in their bodies was burning. Especially when they saw the corpses of their companions, their fighting spirit spread like fire. This could not be considered a competition at all. Instead, it was a fight to the death. In the 4th group, number 23 Chen Hao from the Zhenyuan kingdom and number 24 Zhang Yunshan from the Great Qian kingdom, please step onto the stage. After a few more matches, the referee's loud and clear voice sounded. Zhang Yunshan from the Great Qian kingdom. Huang Qi's gaze quickly scanned through the information of the disciples who had registered. He wanted to determine their cultivation so that he could warn Chen Hao. However, whoosh! The sound of air being torn apart was suddenly heard. Chen Hao had actually landed on the stage with lightning speed. This caused Huang Qi, who had only spoken a few words, to stop abruptly. Helian Wuzi, Moue, and the others who were also slightly stunned recovered and hurriedly asked, "Uncle Huang, what's his cultivation?" "Rank 6 martial emperor." "Fortunately," Huang Qi said. "Oh." Helian Wuzi, Moue, and Yunfian heaved a sigh of relief. Although Chen Hao was only a rank 5 martial emperor, they all knew very well of Chen Hao's battle power. Although a rank 6 martial emperor would be a bit troublesome, it would not be a problem for Chen Hao. Furthermore, it would not be life-threatening. Use all of your strength to kill that brat. When Yi Mingho heard Chen Hao's name and saw Chen Hao's appearance, his expression immediately turned abnormally cold. A year and a half ago, if it wasn't that brat by the name of Chen Hao who had entered the remnants, who else could it be? Even if the matter from a year and a half ago hadn't happened, with Chen Hao's age and strength, he would still be a target that any country would spare no effort to kill. Yes, Crown Prince. The youngster by the name of Zhang Yunshan was filled with confidence and spoke with a cold expression. This youngster was 18 years old. He was already a rank 6 martial emperor. Although he was not an exceptional genius, he was on par with Bai Li Yan and Zhao Yunfei. Even among the Great Qian Kingdom's disciples, he was an outstanding existence. His battle power was very strong, and he was able to contend against ordinary rank 7 martial emperors. Faced with the rank 5 martial emperor Chen Hao, unless his opponent admitted defeat, he was confident that he would be able to kill him. Whoosh! A ray of light streaked across the sky. Zhang Yunshan landed in the middle of the stage. A sharp killing intent immediately filled the air. The gaze with which he looked at Chen Hao was as if he was looking at a dead object. It was incomparably domineering. Match, begin. Clang. Boom. Boom. Following the voice of the referee, Zhang Yunshan unsheathed his sword. He stomped his feet and a brilliant sword ray shot toward Chen Hao. He had increased his origin power to the pinnacle the moment he attacked. He was planning to kill Chen Hao with a single strike. However, Chen Hao did not move from his original location. With a flash of light in his hand, he took a step forward. His body suddenly turned into a blur before the eyes of the crowd. His afterimage was still standing proudly. However, the other, Chen Hao, bent his knees and bent his body. His right hand streaked across the air in a beautiful trajectory. Then, an azure ray of light suddenly shot out explosively like a polar light. Hiss! After crossing a third of the distance between the two, before Zhang Yunshan could even approach Chen Hao, his hair suddenly stood on end. His pupils shrunk and he let out a shout filled with fear and anger. Then, he abruptly brandished his sword to block the incoming attack. Ding! Boom! Pooh! 3 distinctly different sounds exploded at practically the same time. After that, the crowd only saw Chen Hao making a grabbing motion in the air. Then, the azure ray of light that resembled a polar light streaked across the air and returned to his hand. As for Zhang Yunshan, who was frantically brandishing his sword, he was still rapidly approaching Chen Hao. However, after running a distance of 10 feet, a stream of blood spurted out from his throat. Thump, thump, thump. When Zhang Yunshan was about to reach Chen Hao, he fell before Chen Hao. His eyes were wide open. They were filled with anger and fear. He opened his mouth wanting to say something. However, other than the sound of his blood spurting out, he was unable to make any other sound. His pupils slowly dilated. Without giving the crowd time to gasp in shock, Chen Hao, who did not seem to have fought at all, soared into the sky with a cold expression on his face and flew back to his position. Flying daggers, he actually used flying daggers. So powerful. He had clearly blocked the attack successfully. How did he manage to hit his throat? Isn't this Chen Hao a rank 5 martial emperor? Could it be that his origin power is so much stronger than a rank 6 martial emperor's? Impossible. His control over his origin power has most definitely reached the microscopic realm. Otherwise, it would be impossible for him to have failed to block the attack. The crowd burst into an uproar. No one was not shocked. Before Chen Hao appeared, he was already a thorn in the eyes of the various empires. A 15-year-old rank 5 martial emperor. Although he was weak now, what about in the future? Who would dare to look down on him? And now, Chen Hao had killed a rank 6 martial emperor in a clean and efficient manner. It could be said that he had effortlessly killed a rank 6 martial emperor. Furthermore, he was a genius with very strong battle power. This was truly too shocking. It was not only the people from the other great kingdoms that were shocked. Even Huang Qi, Yunfian and the people from the Zhenyuan kingdom were shocked. Likely, only Helian Wuzi and Moyue, who knew Chen Hao the most, were a bit calmer, not bad. For such a super genius to be able to fall by my hands, it can be said that he has died a worthy death. In the participant area of the Star Luo Kingdom, one of the 8 great kingdoms, there was a feminine youth sitting at the very front. He narrowed his eyes as he gazed at Chen Hao, who was flying down from the stage, and spoke in a soft eunuch voice. This youngster was the 4th group's seated participant, the head disciple of the Star Luo Kingdom's new show hall. Yin Fenghan, a peak rank 8 martial emperor. He was 20 years old. In the previous preliminaries of the 8 nations' new prodigy ranking, he had entered the top 10 with the cultivation of a rank 5 martial emperor. Although there was more or less an element of luck involved, his battle power was extremely strong. Now, 2 years later, what sort of battle power did he, a rank 8 martial emperor, possess? The 100 Empire rankings was his goal. P.S. Can you give me a monthly vote or a recommendation vote? Thank you. Chapter 115. First update. Requesting monthly votes and recommendation votes. Thank you to the friends who have supported Dark Mountain in the past 2 days. I will not list them. I'm afraid that people will say that I'm making up the word count. Dark Mountain will remember this and send monthly public thanks. Thank you everyone. How is this boy? At the very end of the viewing platform, at the highest edge, were 2 youths around 18 years old. They were lazily leaning on the railing as they looked down at the stage. When Chen Hao instantly defeated his opponent, one of the youths narrowed his eyes and asked. This youth was small and skinny. He had an ordinary appearance. Although he was also wearing luxurious silver clothes, he did not seem luxurious at all. Instead, he seemed like a waiter in a hotel. His appearance, aura and clothes, he was definitely the type of person that would be drowned out in a crowd. That was because even his gaze was very ordinary. There was not the slightest trace of the aura of an expert. However, the symbol and color on his right chest proved his identity. He was the head disciple of the Xuanwu Empire's new show hall, one of the 5 great palaces, the White Tiger Hall. He's so. Perhaps he's on par with me 2 years ago. What's wrong? Could it be that you're interested? The other handsome youth said lazily. The symbol and color on this youth's chest made it clear that he was the head disciple of the Azure Dragon Hall. I can't say that I'm interested. His cultivation is too low. However, I would like to see how profound his flying blade technique is. The ordinary-looking youth frowned and said with narrowed eyes. Even he was unable to determine what sort of profoundness Chen Hao's stunning flying blade technique contained. You won't have the chance. The 4th group's opponent should be Yin Fenghan. He might even have the chance to become our opponent. The strength of the vassal states this time is pretty good. It seems that we will have to pay more attention to them. Ding! Ding! Boom! 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 Mo Yue, who was at the end of the line, finally stepped onto the stage. His opponent was a rank 3 martial emperor from the Great Qian Kingdom. When that guy saw that Mo Yue was only a rank 1 martial emperor, his confidence soared. He wanted to kill Mo Yue with his sword. However, once he stepped onto the stage, Mo Yue's incomparably sharp sword intent wreaked havoc. With a single move, he gained the absolute advantage. His sword strikes were extremely sharp and crafty. They were all deadly, causing his opponent to be in a completely passive state. It was only a level 9 sword skill, Heartless Sword, in the hands of a swordsman like Mo Yue, had achieved true ruthlessness. However, even though that rank 3 martial emperor was completely suppressed, his vigorous origin energy greatly surpassed Mo Yue's. Thus, that rank 3 martial emperor did not plan to admit defeat at all. He believed that as long as he could persist for a couple more minutes, when Mo Yue's incomparably sharp sword techniques were used up, it would be the time for him to counterattack. But, die. Wang. Mo Yue, who had always been weaker in terms of origin energy, suddenly narrowed his eyes. The large sword in his hand let out a short humming sound, and a bright golden light flashed out. An incomparably sharp and invincible energy appeared in Mo Yue's sword, as fast as lightning. Puff, bang! Chu Feng's sword pierced through that rank 3 martial emperor's roar. Then, with a sudden twist, a bloody head rolled out from that rank 3 martial emperor's neck. A thick arrow of blood shot up 3 meters into the air, filling the sky with a bloody mist. Like a sword, Mo Yue stood proudly on the stage. He took out a snow-white handkerchief and, before the gazes of the crowd, gently wiped away the blood on his large sword with a gentle and pampering gaze. In reality, after his sword pierced the throat, there would not be any blood on his sword. However, in this bitter battle, Mo Yue used an even more cruel method. Even though he knew that his opponent would definitely die, he still cut off his opponent's head. Compared to Chen Hao's stunning blade strike, the visual shock it brought to the crowd was even greater. After gently wiping his large sword clean, Mo Yue sheathed his sword. With an indifferent expression, he flew back to the viewing platform. When there were only 2 matches left in the first round, the number 30 Helian Wuxi of the 9th group finally appeared. Helian Wuxi was a rank 3 martial emperor. Her opponent was only a rank 2 martial emperor. Helian Wuxi did not use her 5 elements energy at all. With a palm strike, she sent her opponent flying out of the stage, seriously injuring him. The first round ended. Only Dongfang Jian, Zhao Yunlong, Bai Lishi, Dongfang Jun, Zhao Yunfei, Bailey Yan, Chen Hao, Mo Yue, and Helian Wuxi remained in the Jinyuan kingdom. After a short rest of 15 minutes, the second round began. The order of appearance was still the same as before. After the second round began, the battles became even more bitter. However, the death rate decreased. The reason for that was because some disciples would directly choose to admit defeat when they encountered opponents with an enormous disparity in cultivation. In the first 8 matches, Yi Minghe, Dongfang Jian and the other head disciples did not fight. Yet, they were able to advance to the 3rd round. Zhao Yunlong, Bai Lishi, Dongfang Jun, Zhao Yunfei and Bai Li Yan advanced again. Bai Li Yan encountered a rank 5 martial emperor with the same cultivation as him. His battle power was on par with his. Although he advanced, he was unable to participate in the next round. Zhao Yunlong and Bai Lishi were the head disciples of their respective palaces. Thus, they easily won their matches and seriously injured their opponents. That was nothing. However, Dongfang Jun and Zhao Yunfei displayed astonishing battle power in their matches. Both of them killed their rank 5 martial emperors. However, even with that being the case, both Zhao Yunfei and Dongfang Jun no longer had the arrogance they had before. This was especially true for Dongfang Jun. When he saw Chen Hao's stunning blade strike that instantly killed a rank 6 martial emperor, although he did not wish to admit it, he knew that he was no match for Chen Hao. In the 4th group, number 23 from the Zhenyuan Kingdom, Chen Hao, number 25 from the Great Peak Kingdom, Meng Fei, please step onto the stage. Number 24 had already been killed by Chen Hao. This time around, his opponent was Meng Fei, the rank 5 martial emperor. Before the start of this round, everyone was able to predict who their opponent would be. In the previous round, all the groups were consecutive matches. One person would win, and the other would be eliminated. In this round, Chen Hao's opponent was number 25 from the group below him. Right after Chen Hao stepped onto the stage, he immediately moved back. There was nothing he could do about it. His opponent had actually chosen to admit defeat. Evidently, he had been frightened by Chen Hao's stunning blade strike. Furthermore, he simply had no way to defeat it. In this round, Mo Yue and Helian Wuzi were unlucky. Mo Yue's opponent was a rank 5 martial emperor from the Great Qian Kingdom. As for Helian Wuzi, she was a rank 6 martial emperor from the Great Peak Kingdom. The disparity in cultivation was simply too enormous. Thus, under the advice of Chen Hao and Huang Qi, they directly chose to admit defeat. Otherwise, they might very well be killed by their opponents. After entering the 3rd round, only Dongfang Jian, Zhao Yunlong, Bai Lishi, Dongfang Jun, Zhao Yunfei and Chen Hao remained. Bai Li Yan was seriously injured and was unable to participate in the battle. Only 8 people remained in each group. Among them, one person had advanced to the next round. Junior brother, your opponent this time around is Ran Miao Miao, are you confident in winning? Yunfian took a glance at Fang Qing, who had regained consciousness with the help of top-quality healing medicinal pellets. However, her face was still pale. She turned to Chen Hao and asked. Yes, Chen Hao calmly said. Since he had already set a target for himself, there was no need for him to hide too much. After all, he would soon be seen. He, rank 8 martial emperor, allow this crown prince to end your match. Yi Minghe looked to the 2-meter-tall, majestic lion-like youngster before him. He, who was a head shorter than him, actually spoke with disdain. Enough of your superfluous words. Go ahead and attack. The majestic youngster had a serious expression. However, he was not afraid in the slightest. This was the first match of the 3rd round. Yi Minghe's opponent was the 2nd-ranked expert of the Chunjun Kingdom, Meng Nan. His strength was definitely not inferior to the seeded contestants. He was 22 years old. Like Dongfang Jian, Bai Lishi and Zhao Yunlong, he had already participated in the 8-nation rookie competition twice. This was his final opportunity. Yi Minghe was only a rank 6 martial emperor. However, since he was able to become the head disciple of the Great Qian Kingdom, Meng Nan did not dare to look down on him in the slightest. Bang! Meng Nan took the initiative to attack. With a single step, a deep crater appeared on the hard rocky ground. His majestic body actually disappeared. For such a body to possess such speed, it was truly astonishing. It was as if his fist had landed on Yi Mingho's face. The wind created by the fist was vast and mighty. Yi Mingho's smile of contempt was immediately blown away by the wind created by the fist. When he was seen again, he was already 10 meters away from Meng Nan. Even his posture and expression did not change in the slightest. So fast, how could this position-shifting shadows be so powerful? This Yi Mingho is only a rank 6 martial emperor. Yet, he possesses such astonishing strength. He is most definitely a genius that only appears once every 100 years. You have the appearance of a monstrous beast. Never would I have expected that your speed would be pretty good. Unfortunately, before this crown prince, you're nothing more than a fart. As long as you can touch the corner of this crown prince's clothes, you'll win. I'll give you 10 chances. Yi Mingho crossed his arms before his chest and spoke with contempt. Yi Mingho's arrogant words caused the crowd to look at each other in dismay. Touching the corner of his clothes meant losing. No matter what, Meng Nan was a rank 8 martial emperor. This was simply undisguised contempt and humiliation. Roar! Meng Nan let out a beast-like roar. His speed abruptly increased once again. His speed was so fast that it was unimaginable. The origin power in his body had also been pushed to the pinnacle. However, the following scene caused everyone to be overwhelmed with shock. 1 bolt, 2 bolts, 3 bolts, 4 bolts, a total of 8 identical figures appeared around Meng Nan. Furthermore, it was impossible to tell if they were real or fake. 2 times, 3 times, all of the figures spoke at the same time. They were indifferently counting the number of times Meng Nan attacked. This guy has comprehended the wind attribute from the wood attribute. Chen Hao, who was staring at the stage, frowned slightly. His valiant soul perception allowed him to capture a trace of Yi Mingho's aura. The 8 figures that appeared to be unmoving were all real. That was because Yi Mingho was moving with a frightening speed. Every time he arrived at a figure, he would stop for an extremely short period of time so that the afterimage would continue to maintain his appearance. This was the secret skill, position shifting shadows. As for the reason why he was able to do it without making any sound, it was because he had fused with the concept of wind and caused everyone to have an illusion. 7 times, 8 times, Yi Mingho's voice became more and more disdainful. Meng Nan was like a mad beast. He was using all of his strength to increase his speed unceasingly. Was he unable to even touch the corner of his opponent's clothes? Pooh! What no one expected was that when Meng Nan released his 9th pursuit, a cold light suddenly appeared like lightning when Meng Nan was about to reach one of the figures. Before most people could see what happened, Meng Nan's large body seemed to have lost control. He tumbled and spat out an arrow of blood that dyed the stage and sky red. Idiot! You really are all brawn and no brains. I told you to touch this prince's clothes, but I didn't tell you not to defend. Yi Mingho's 8 figures merged into one. His white robe was spotless as he spoke these words that made everyone's hearts turn cold. First update. Requesting monthly votes and recommendation votes. Please everyone, thank you very much. If you like this work, I welcome you to come to Chidian.com to give me your recommendation votes and monthly votes. Chapter 116. Thank you very much, friends, for your monthly tickets. Let us return the favor. The gap between us is very small, and we might be overtaken at any moment. That's why, we'll have to rely on our brothers and sisters. The only thing Dark Mountain can do is to do its best to write. Friends who still have monthly votes, please vote for Dark Mountain. Many thanks. This Yi Mingho has no problem entering the top 10. Within the first group, the most promising Meng Nan was easily defeated by him. Moreover, he didn't even reveal his true strength. He is truly powerful. Fortunately, you guys aren't in the same group as him, so you don't have to worry too much. Huang Qi said to everyone. Next, the seeded players of the second and third groups also won easily. The fourth group's seeded contestant, the Star Luo Kingdom's Yin Fenghan, encountered a rank 8 martial emperor from the Great Qian Kingdom. However, to the crowd's astonishment, Yin Fenghan, who had a feminine appearance and looked like a eunuch, managed to send his opponent flying out of the stage within 3 strikes, causing him to lose consciousness. His battle prowess had risen to the same level as Yi Mingho, whose strength was unknown. Dongfang Jian encountered a rank 6 martial emperor. That rank 6 martial emperor directly admitted defeat. Soon after, Zhao Yunlong and Bai Lishi won one after another. Dongfang Jun won by a fluke and suffered light injuries, while Zhao Yunfei lost miserably and suffered heavy injuries. In this round, Chen Hao was the only one from the Jinyuan Kingdom who hadn't participated yet. Miao Miao, are you sure? Jing Feiyang, the chief disciple of Jingyun Kingdom, asked Ran Miao Miao with concern in his eyes. Ran Miao Miao was Jing Feiyang's fiancé. Jing Feiyang was a direct descendant of the royal family of the Jingyun Kingdom. He is merely a rank 5 martial emperor. His opponent's speed and battle prowess were too weak, which was why he had succeeded. If you meet me, you will definitely lose. At the very most, his strength would be comparable to that of a rank 7 martial emperor. Although I am only a rank 6 martial emperor, my origin energy is comparable to that of a peak rank 7 martial emperor. He can control his essence energy to the smallest detail, so can I, don't worry. Besides, Ran Miao Miao's beautiful eyes shone with strong confidence. She looked at Jing Feiyang and said in a low voice, with my beauty, how much of my combat strength do you think he can unleash if I use the heavenly charm technique? You are going to use it? I was unlucky and didn't get into the 9th or 10th group. That sissy Yin Fenghan, I'm not his match. I only have 2 more battles at most. If I can kill such a super genius, it will be a great achievement. What's not to like? Alright then, let's welcome number 17 Ran Miao Miao from the Jingyun Kingdom and number 23 Chen Hao from the Jinyuan Kingdom from the 4th group. The referee's voice rang out. Finally, it was Chen Hao's turn to take the stage again. This was the 3rd round, and Chen Hao had only fought once. If he won this time, he would be promoted to the top 4 in the group. Junior brother, be careful. The weak Fang Qin whispered. She deeply felt how terrifying Ran Miao Miao was. Although he knew that Chen Hao's battle prowess was not simple, he did not have much confidence in defeating him. Don't worry, Chen Hao said calmly. His eyes were full of confidence as he flew towards the ring. That beauty Ran Miao Miao won't admit defeat, right? How can I admit defeat? Although Ran Miao Miao is only a rank 6 martial emperor, she is a disciple of Jingyun Kingdom's number 1 clan. Did you not see the battle power she displayed in the last 2 matches? He definitely wouldn't admit defeat. It's just that it's hard to tell who's going to win. That Chen Hao isn't simple. He's only fought once so far, so I really can't tell how strong he is. That's right. However, this match should be very marvelous. Why isn't Ran Miao Miao on the stage yet? Could it be that she's really going to admit defeat? She's on the stage. Whoosh! At the moment when the crowd was spiritedly discussing and Helian Wuzi and the others were feeling nervous, Ran Miao Miao turned into a ray of light and flew towards the stage from the viewing platform. When she reached the top of the stage, her speed immediately slowed down and she gradually descended. Her beautiful hair fluttered in the wind and her white gown fluttered in the wind. To everyone's astonishment, Ran Miao Miao actually had a smile on her face. Her beautiful eyes were filled with emotion as she stared at the handsome Chen Hao with a serious expression. The gentle breeze caused Ran Miao Miao's graceful, exquisite and curvaceous body to be completely revealed. Especially her towering breasts, they were extremely alluring and flirtatious. Many disciples in the crowd were staring blankly at Ran Miao Miao. Ran Miao Miao was indeed a first-rate beauty. However, her performance in the last 2 matches was not too shocking. Yet now, with merely her appearance, she had caused many youths' heartbeats to accelerate. Her charm had simply increased exponentially. However, Chen Hao frowned slightly and his gaze became even sharper. His soul perception far exceeded that of ordinary people. Chen Hao could clearly sense a strange aura enveloping Ran Miao Miao. It was similar to his enchanting senior sister Yanfian, but there was a big difference. As for the specific difference, Chen Hao could not say. However, he knew that Yanfian's aura was innate. However, Ran Miao Miao had deliberately activated it. Are you trying to confuse me? Chen Hao stood with his hands clasped behind his back. The corners of his mouth curled up slightly. His handsome and delicate face immediately made people feel a strange and demonic aura. He thought disdainfully in his heart. Ran Miao Miao's expression changed slightly. The match begins. At this moment, the referee announced straightforwardly. Chen Hao's gaze had already clearly told Ran Miao Miao that her heavenly charm art had no effect at all. This made her very surprised. Therefore, when she heard the referee's words, she did not dare to hesitate at all. Her figure flashed, and like a ghost, she swayed left and right and quickly approached Chen Hao. Facing a flying dagger master, only a substitute could play to her strengths and avoid her weaknesses in close combat. If she was at a distance, she would be completely beaten. Seeing this scene, everyone thought that Chen Hao would quickly retreat and draw his dagger to maintain the best attacking distance. However, to everyone's surprise, Chen Hao, who had curled up the corners of his mouth, suddenly took a step forward instead of retreating. Come on! Meteor Sword Storm! Ran Miao Miao shouted. Seeing that the two of them were only 10 feet apart, which was the best attacking distance for her, she suddenly swung her sword. Swish! Swish! Star-shaking fist. Chen Hao's body suddenly glowed with a bright blue light, especially his arms. As the light extended from his shoulders to his arms to his fists, the color became more and more intense. His fists were crystal blue, and the color of his skin could no longer be seen. Every punch seemed to tear the space apart, creating a huge air explosion, and instantly smashing Ran Miao Miao's sword light. At this moment, Chen Hao suddenly changed the finger-guessing game into a palm, and his left hand slapped out. Billowing smoke and biting cold instantly covered a radius of more than 10 feet. Everyone, including the referee, could not see the two figures at all. Boom! 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 The dense and terrifying explosion caused countless gravel to fly out in all directions. Dust and smoke billowed and hazy. What was even more shocking was that the icy cold aura seemed to have frozen the air around the entire arena, forcibly creating pieces of frost and snow. Giving her a taste of her own medicine. Seeing this scene, countless people widened their eyes in shock, especially Fang Qing and her companions. It should be noted that Ran Miao Miao had used the same method to severely injure Fang Qing. If Fang Qing had not used a secret method, she would have been killed at this moment. And now, Chen Hao had also blocked all information about Ran Miao Miao, and used the ice and fog energy of the 5 elements. Chen Hao's flying knife technique had already shocked everyone. At this moment, Chen Hao displayed his ability to comprehend the energy of the 5 elements. If it was just comprehension, it would be fine. But now, Chen Hao's ice fog energy was so majestic and powerful that it was simply unbelievable. After all, the power of the 5 elements could only be fully exerted in the martial sage realm. Ah! Ah! Although the terrifying sound of the explosion drowned out everyone's voices, Ran Miao Miao's sharp cry suddenly broke through the explosion and resounded loudly. However, in just an instant, an even sharper cry soared into the sky and rolled out, causing the nearby disciples to feel pain in their eardrums. Miao Miao. The expression of Jing Feiyang, the head disciple of Jing Yun Empire, changed greatly and he cried out in alarm. However, the moment that sharp cry stopped, the smoke instantly dispersed, as if it was specially made for the crowd to see. Everyone's eyes were wide open. Chen Hao's fist, which was filled with origin energy and looked like a blue crystal, had landed squarely on Ran Miao Miao's forehead. Amidst the gasps and cries of alarm, that extremely beautiful little face that had caused countless youths to become restless, with a bang, like a watermelon blooming. Miao Miao. Ah! I'll kill you, I'll kill you. Jing Feiyang immediately howled crazily. The origin energy in his body surged violently. With a rumble, before anyone could stop him, he rushed toward the stage. Stop! The referee who came back to his senses immediately shouted. However, Jing Feiyang had already arrived above the stage. As if he had gone crazy, he slapped down with his palm. Even the rank 9 martial emperor referee was unable to stop him. Jing Feiyang's vigorous and berserk origin energy formed an incomparably huge palm and slapped down with a rumble. Like the weight of Mount Tai, it smashed down on Chen Hao's head. At this instant, even Chen Hao did not expect that Jing Feiyang would dare to violate the competition's rules. There were no rules for the two sides in the new talent competition. However, no one was allowed to interfere in the competition. Not to mention taking revenge on the stage, even warning the other side was allowed. Feeling that terrifying energy, Chen Hao tightly frowned. He was about to attack when he suddenly stopped. Bastard! Boom! At the same time as a furious shout sounded, an incorporeal huge hand suddenly flashed from the direction of the platform and directly dispersed Jing Feiyang's mountain-like huge hand. Disrupting the competition, disqualified. Banned from the new talent competition for life. Scram! The head of the arbitration group, the mighty god general, was shining with resplendent 7-colored radiance like a god. He easily neutralized all of Jing Feiyang's attacks. Then, he directly announced the punishment. Jing Feiyang stood in the air, as if he was choked by an incorporeal huge hand. He was unable to move in the slightest. After the old man said, "Scram," he was directly thrown toward the Jingyun Kingdom's viewing platform like a dead object. "Senior, thank you for saving me." After being stunned for a moment, Chen Hao cupped his fists and said to the old man who was standing in the air. There was dead silence below the stage. Helian Wuzi, Huang Qi, and the others all broke out in cold sweat. On the other hand, Chen Hao's handsome and delicate face did not change at all. Even his white robe was intact. He even calmly thanked the head of the arbitration group. It was as if he was not the one who had just experienced a life and death crisis. Chen Hao, very good. The old man only intervened to uphold the competition's rules. In fact, you don't necessarily need the old man to save you. Alright, let the competition continue. The old man stared at Chen Hao, his eyes shining brightly as he spoke calmly. His words, however, left most people scratching their heads in confusion. Don't necessarily need to be saved. What did that mean? Second update. Wuxian, continue to climb and work hard. If you have monthly tickets, please help Wuxian. Thank you. Chapter 117. Monthly votes. Monthly votes. Recommendation votes. Thank you. The words of the head of the arbitration group shocked Chen Hao. Could it be that the head of the arbitration group had seen through his true battle power? Slightly shrugging his shoulders, Chen Hao, before the shocked gazes of the crowd, flew to the viewing platform. Boy, you've truly hidden your strength well. Just as Chen Hao sat down, Huang Qi looked at Chen Hao with a seemingly displeased expression. Uncle Huang, I didn't hide anything. After coming out of the remnant, you didn't ask me anything. Chen Hao felt the fiery gazes of the crowd. Even Helian Wuzi, Moue, Yunfian and Fang Qing were no exception. No one could have thought that Chen Hao was actually powerful to such a level. According to the words of the head of the arbitration group, it seemed that Chen Hao had risen to the level of Jing Feiyang. How could the crowd not be shocked? Even Dong Fangjun, who had become sworn enemies with Chen Hao because of Helian Wuzi, no longer looked at Chen Hao with the same arrogance as before. Instead, it was replaced with shock and a strange emotion. That's true. I truly didn't expect you to grow so quickly. To possess such battle power as a rank 5 martial emperor, I'm afraid. Huang Qi stopped halfway and continued, I'm looking forward to your performance. The battles continued. Soon, the third round ended. In the fourth round, there were only 4 people left in each group. Only the 8th group had 3 people left because Jing Feiyang was disqualified. Dong Fangjun, who was originally lightly injured and destined to face Jing Feiyang in the 4th round, had already lost his fighting spirit. However, at this moment, his fighting spirit was once again ignited. It must be said that this opportunity was created for him by Chen Hao. The other 2 were both rank 7 martial emperors. Dong Fangjun had an 80% certainty that he would be able to defeat them, obtain first place in the group, and advance to the true rookie competition. To be able to win 3 rounds in a row, there was not a single weak person left. The 4th round began. The first 7 rounds were all fought by the chief disciples of each group. Yi Mingho and the other chief disciples had all successfully advanced to the next round. Only in the 6th group, the chief disciple of the Heavenly War Kingdom was eliminated by the second-ranked expert of the Great Qian Kingdom, Bu Feihong. At the same time, what made the people of the Zhenyuan Kingdom feel regretful was that Zhao Yunlong, who was very promising, was eliminated by the second group's chief disciple, Sima Chong, by a very small margin. This ended Zhao Yunlong's dream. When it came to the 8th group, Dong Fangjun, who was at the front of the line, was full of fighting spirit because he didn't have Jing Feiyang. He actually won another battle and smoothly advanced to the next round. As long as he defeated the disciple who was given a bye in the next round, he would be promoted to the real rookie competition. Whether it was luck or strength, no matter how bad Dong Fangjun's performance in the Royal New Show Hall was, everyone still felt honored at this moment. After all, he had brought honor to the Zhenyuan Kingdom. The 9th and 10th groups' battles also ended very quickly. Because there was no chief disciple, these 2 groups were undoubtedly lucky. However, those who could make it this far were all experts. The 2 victorious disciples were actually from the Deqian Kingdom. Without any pause, the 5th round began. Bai Lishi won with light injuries. As long as he defeated the chief disciple of the 3rd group in the 6th round, he would be able to advance. Finally, it was Chen Hao's turn again. His opponent was an 18-year-old rank 7 martial emperor, a disciple of the Star Luo Kingdom. He was from the same kingdom as the chief disciple of the 4th group. Chen Hao didn't hesitate, nor did he show any mercy. Even though he didn't have any enmity with his opponent, he still displayed great strength. He didn't give his opponent any chance to retaliate and directly killed him. Survival of the fittest. The strong preyed on the weak. This was the law of the jungle. It was also something that every kingdom's disciple would do. After the 5th round ended, there were only 2 people left in each group. This was the final battle. It was also the battle that would determine whether or not one was qualified to advance to the real rookie competition. Bai Lishi, you'll be in the 3rd round. You should have seen your opponent's strength. Whether or not you'll be able to advance will depend on this battle. You still have a lot of hope. Huang Qi encouraged. Although Huang Qi could see that Bai Lishi only had a 40% chance of winning, this was Bai Lishi's last chance. After this year, Bai Lishi would no longer have the chance to participate in the rookie competition. If he failed, it would mean that he would be like Zhao Yunlong. He would never be able to reach a higher level. I'll do my best, even if I die, Bai Lishi said resolutely. His opponent was the chief disciple of the Heaven Vault Kingdom, Bai Meng. The strength that Bai Lishi had displayed in the past few battles put a lot of pressure on him. However, this was his last chance. Whether or not he could advance was related to his honor, his clan's honor, and the Jinyuan Kingdom's honor. He had to put his life on the line. Chen Hao, you'll be in the 4th round. Your opponent, Yin Fenghan, is probably no weaker than Yi Mingho. Are you sure you have the strength to fight him? Yin Fenghan won't let go of a genius like you. Think about it carefully. You're not even 15 years old. You still have a chance. There's no need to think about it. Either he dies, or I die. Chen Hao's tone was even more resolute. Yin Fenghan still didn't have an opponent that was strong enough for him to reveal his true strength. Even Chen Hao was well aware that the upcoming battle would be the most difficult one he had ever faced. He wasn't confident that he could win. However, Chen Hao knew that he wouldn't do as he said. He had to win at all costs. Even if he had to expose all his trump cards. Huang Qi stared at Chen Hao for a while and didn't say anything else. Even he couldn't guess Chen Hao's true strength. However, based on his understanding of Chen Hao, he felt that Chen Hao might exceed everyone's expectations. Then, Huang Qi talked about Dongfang Jian. With Dongfang Jian's strength, as long as he didn't hide any powerful trump cards, it wouldn't be difficult for him to advance. As for Dongfang Jun, Huang Qi's words were similar to Chen Hao's. The only difference was that Dongfang Jun had a higher chance of winning in terms of reputation. This was because the gap between his opponent and Yin Fenghan wasn't small. When Chen Hao arrogantly stepped onto the stage to fight against a rank 8 martial emperor, Helian Wuzi, who was sitting next to him, used her arm to nudge Chen Hao. She turned her beautiful little face and slightly raised it. She looked straight at Chen Hao and said, "Why must you risk your life? Can't you do it 2 years later?" Chen Hao frowned slightly and avoided Helian Wuzi's gaze. After hesitating for a while, he finally said, 2 years is too long. I can't wait that long. Do it at all costs. Helian Wuzi's sharp intuition seemed to have caught something from Chen Hao's evasive gaze. She lowered her voice and asked with a slight tremble. Chen Hao nodded and replied. I understand. I will. Little Mo and I will work hard. Helian Wuzi looked at Chen Hao's face that had become even more handsome and mature. She tightly bit her lips and said with a voice as soft as a mosquito's. Do it at all costs. These words made Helian Wuzi clearly feel that Chen Hao, who had once humiliated her but was unable to make her hate him, seemed to be fated to walk out of her sight. No one knew better than her and Mo Yue about Chen Hao's abnormal talent. She had always been working hard, putting her life on the line. She had long realized that there would be a day when she and Mo Yue would not be able to keep up with his pace. She just didn't expect it to come so quickly, so early. A heart that was already rippling could only forcibly suppress all of this. She didn't want to become a burden that hindered his progress. She also had a woman's reservedness and dignity. So, she didn't urge him to stay. She couldn't urge him to stay. She also knew that she couldn't urge him to stay. The only thing she could do was to work even harder and cultivate even more crazily. Mo Yue, who was sitting next to Helian Wuzi, lightly trembled his ears. His gaze left the stage and looked at his own sword. It was fiery and firm. Yi Mingho ended the battle within 3 minutes. He heavily injured the strongest opponent in the first group and was the first to qualify for the rookie competition. In the second group, Sima Chong, the chief disciple of the Great Dome Kingdom, obtained the first place after much difficulty. In the third group, Bai Lishi gave it his all but still lost. He lost by a small margin and was eliminated after Zhao Yunlong. The chief disciple of the Heaven Vault Kingdom, Bai Meng, obtained the first place in the group. Whoosh whoosh. When the referee called out Yin Fenghan and Chen Hao's names, the two instantly turned into two streaks of light and appeared in the middle of the stage at the same time. Your battle strength is really shocking. It's a pity that you met me. Admit defeat. At least you can keep your life. Don't blame me for not giving you a chance. When the referee announced the start of the battle, Yin Fenghan and Chen Hao's aura rapidly soared. At the same time, Yin Fenghan's eerie rooster voice rang out. Your voice is even more shocking. It makes one seriously suspect that you were a father-in-law for a few years when you were young. Chen Hao's lips curled up slightly as he directly hit Yin Fenghan's sore spot. One shouldn't expose a person's shortcomings when scolding, but Chen Hao did so. What? Yin Fenghan, who was feminine and handsome, suddenly roared sharply. He forcibly changed the what into what. More like it. No, it should be. Admit defeat. I think you're afraid, right? Otherwise, with your personality, why would you give me the chance to admit defeat? Damn eunuch. Chen Hao's words were even more direct. I want you to die. Yin Fenghan's anger instantly rose to the limit. He took a step forward and his snow-white, crystal-like palm violently slapped towards Chen Hao. Chen Hao's pupils constricted. Whoosh whoosh whoosh, 1, 2, 3, a total of 9 flying daggers that emitted a cold aura and unparalleled sharpness drew 9 strange trajectories as they shot towards Yin Fenghan. A battle of wits and courage. The conversation between the two did not seem to have any substance, but it was enough to prove that both sides completely regarded the other as a strong opponent. Yin Fenghan did not want to use his words to frighten Chen Hao and make him retreat. Because after several rounds of battle, he discovered that he could not see through Chen Hao at all. This made him, who was always arrogant, not dare to say who would win so easily. But he did not expect that not only did he not succeed in frightening him, he instead made Chen Hao so angry that he completely lost his mind. His voice was strange. Who dared to say? Who said that he would fight with his life on the line? Not to mention the eunuchs and eunuchs, one had to know, this was a secret that only his parents and himself knew. How could Chen Hao's tone be so certain? How could he say it in front of the world? P.S. Third update. I sincerely request the brothers and sisters who still have monthly votes to support me. Thank you. Chapter 118. Brothers and sisters, today's monthly votes are still 0. Is there anything more miserable than this? Everyone, please give me some encouragement. The shock of losing an egg is too great. Covering my face with tears, I will continue writing. Everything will depend on everyone. Light of the fireflies. Facing the strange and tricky 9 flying daggers, the furious Yin Fenghan shouted coldly. His exposed skin seemed to have turned into a white jade crystal in an instant, emitting a faint blue metallic luster. The color of his pair of flesh palms became darker, like they had turned into sharp claws. He did not care about the 9 flying daggers at all. His body was as fast as a ghost, approaching Chen Hao. Ding ding ding. Boom boom boom. The incomparably sharp flying daggers that were capable of instantly killing rank 7 martial emperors actually let out a metallic sound when they collided with Yin Fenghan's body. They were knocked back with a loud rumble. Yin Fenghan was not injured in the slightest. He actually continued his previous words and coldly said, "You dare to compete with the sun and moon? Prepare to die." Yin Fenghan suddenly let out a sharp whistle. He, who was less than 15 meters away from Chen Hao, immediately soared into the sky and emitted an incomparably sharp killing intent. He flew through the sky like a flash of lightning. He twisted his body in the air and slapped down with his azure palm. Violent lightning blast. Hiss hiss, rumble, the frightening origin power actually contained a strong aura of lightning. Like a thunderbolt, it exploded and bombarded Chen Hao below. Heavenly lightning palm. The instant the experts on the viewing platform and the various countries' participant seating areas saw Yin Fenghan unleash his palm, they immediately cried out in alarm. Especially the Zhenyuan Kingdom's Hall Master, Vice Hall Master and Huang Qi, who was seated at the front of the participant seating area, all revealed expressions of extreme shock. Heavenly lightning palm, a level 16 secret skill. It was one of the strongest and highest level secret skills in the Star Luo Kingdom. According to rumor, when cultivated to the peak, one could be comparable to real lightning. With a single palm strike, lightning would wreak havoc and thunder would rumble. It was a frightening secret skill that only martial ancestor realm cultivators could learn. Only martial saints could truly unleash its might. Yet now, Yin Fenghan, who was only a rank 8 martial emperor, had unleashed the heavenly lightning palm. Although Han Feng had not unleashed the full power of the heaven's thunder palm, this move was not something that a martial emperor could withstand. Although Helian Wuxi, Moue and the rest did not know how powerful the heaven's thunder palm was, at this moment, that terrifying aura had already enveloped the entire martial arts practice field, causing the heaven and earth energy above the arena to become violent. With this kind of power, it was hard to imagine how terrifying Yin Fenghan's palm was. Rumbling explosions shook the surroundings. Thunderclaps, lightning, and thunderclaps exploded out successively, shaking the entire martial practice grounds to the point of trembling and trembling. Stone fragments even swirled into the air on the combat arena, and cracks swiftly appeared on the ground beneath the combat arena and the steps on the spectator stands. The power was so great that it shocked everyone present. Being able to die under my heaven's thunder palm is enough for you to be proud, he. Yin Fenghan continuously struck out with his palms, his arrogant voice resounding in everyone's ears. On the other hand, Chen Hao, who was in the arena, was dodging the terrifying lightning palms like a mouse. He was in a sorry state, and it was obvious that he had pushed his protective energy to the limit. How much longer could he last? Everyone could almost see the scene of Chen Hao being blasted by the lightning and smashed into pieces. Too terrifying, this Yin Fenghan's strength is actually so strong. I'm afraid he's not much weaker than our 5 palace chief. Yes. He's indeed very strong. Although it's not quite possible for him to obtain the right to participate in the 100 Empire rankings, he can definitely advance to the top 50, no, the top 20, or even the top 10 are all possible. Of course, the prerequisite is that he also possesses a spirit treasure that can contend with our 5 palace chief. That's true. The talent of these vassal states' top disciples is actually not inferior to our empire's true geniuses. The only difference is in their background. Spirit treasures are probably very difficult to obtain in those barren places. Yes. But it's not impossible. Over the years, there have been many disciples who possess spirit treasures. Although there are few low-level inheritances in those places, there are still some. We can't look down on them too much. This Yin Fenghan entered the top 10 in the previous preliminaries with the cultivation of a rank 5 martial emperor. His battle power and luck are both extremely astonishing. And now, he even used the heaven's lightning palm that surpasses his cultivation. I feel that it's very possible that he possesses a spirit treasure. This Zhenyuan Kingdom's Chen Hao is truly unfortunate. He's only 15 years old and he already possesses such strength. If he didn't force himself to accept the challenge, it wouldn't be difficult for him to obtain the right to participate in the 100 Empire rankings 2 years later. His talent is not inferior to our 5 palace chief, and might even surpass them. If he was born in our empire, he would be extremely powerful. There's nothing we can do about it. This is the sorrow of super geniuses. Generally speaking, super geniuses are all arrogant and don't know the immensity of heaven and earth. For people like him, 99 out of 100 will die young. Only the one that survives can become a true super existence. Unfortunately, there are too many people. This Chen Hao won't be able to endure more than a few moves. Truly stubborn. If I were him, I'd immediately jump off the stage and admit defeat. Isn't that just waiting for death? On the viewing platform, many disciples of the Xuanwu Empire's new show hall stared at the stage with bright eyes as they discussed spiritedly. However, some of the experts' gazes quietly changed. Originally, they were staring at the insufferably arrogant Yin Fenghan, but now, they were looking at Chen Hao with a trace of shock. 1 minute. Chen Hao had already miserably dodged Yin Fenghan's horrifying heaven's lightning palm for 1 minute. Even though his protective chi had been broken open numerous times, his clothes were in tatters, and his black hair had become disheveled, what was shocking was that his figure actually didn't slow down in the slightest. As he passed through the flying rubble, Chen Hao's extraordinarily handsome face actually didn't show the slightest trace of panic. Especially his eyes that flickered with a bright light, they were even calm like water and composed, causing others to have the feeling as if they wouldn't be moved by the wind. How was this possible? The power of lightning was the most violent kind of energy. The heaven's lightning palm that Yin Fenghan had unleashed contained the power of lightning. It might not be much to a martial saint expert, but to those below the martial emperor realm, it had a huge destructive power. Lightning shock, Yuan Qi explosion. Without a doubt, the power of lightning was the most terrifying kind of energy for cultivators, especially low-level cultivators. Not to mention being struck by lightning, even cultivating in a thunderstorm was a great taboo. Otherwise, once one was contaminated by the power of lightning, one's dantian would explode, and one's body would be smashed to pieces. However, after Chen Hao was hit and his protective aura was broken, his body only paused for a moment before he once again fled at lightning speed. Could it be, this kid has comprehended the lightning attribute of gold? Huang Qi and most of the experts on the viewing platform were shocked at this moment. When Chen Hao was fighting against Ran Miaomiao, he had already displayed the power of ice and mist. Everyone had seen it clearly. To be able to comprehend one of the 5 elements in the martial emperor realm, although it was shocking, everyone present were the top geniuses of the various kingdoms. It was not enough to shock them. Many of them had comprehended it. But, to be able to comprehend 2 of the 5 elements at the same time at the martial emperor realm was definitely rare. The originally arrogant and insufferably arrogant Yin Fenghan, who was originally confident of victory, in just a short minute, his eyes became extremely sinister. His brows were tightly furrowed. Although he was still violently waving his palms and had the absolute advantage, he knew that if this continued, the one who would lose would be him. Such an attack that exceeded one's cultivation level was something that consumed a lot of Yuan Qi. How long could he last? After a short moment of hesitation, Yin Fenghan's eyes suddenly flashed with determination and viciousness. He no longer hesitated. Be careful, he is about to use it. No one knew that at this moment, the voice of the treasure-hunting sword spirit rang in Chen Hao's mind. When Yin Fenghan used the heaven's thunder palm, the treasure-hunting sword spirit had already appeared. It was not to help Chen Hao fight, as it did not have the ability to do so. However, with its sensitive perception of treasures, it discovered that Yin Fenghan's heaven's thunder palm contained a strong aura of a spiritual treasure. Otherwise, with Yin Fenghan's cultivation level, it was impossible for him to use such a powerful attack. Good. Chen Hao's cold eyes flashed with a wisp of light. His mind was instantly immersed in a wonderful state. While he was fleeing in a sorry state, he suddenly stomped his feet. Hong! An explosive sound came from under his feet. His body, which was already moving at an astonishing speed, instantly turned into a streak of light. With a "so" sound, he left behind a semicircular afterimage. At the same time, he actually avoided the Yin wind cold thunder palm and flew high into the sky. Ah! Cries of shock erupted from the crowd. Everyone stared with their eyes wide open. Hiss hiss hiss. To everyone's surprise, Qianhao had actually removed his protective aura, and streaks of lightning surged out of his body like arcs of lightning. He really comprehended the power of lightning. Countless experts said in their hearts in shock. Even Yin Fenghan stared with his eyes wide open in shock. He did not dare to hesitate any longer. With a sharp voice, he suddenly shouted, "Quick! Wang!" A bright ray of lightning, in an instant, caused the sun in the sky to dim. Competing with the sun and moon. A treasure sword that seemed to contain thousands of lightning appeared in Yin Fenghan's hand. With the sword in hand, before it was activated, it seemed to have torn apart the space barrier. It caused an earth-shattering explosion in the space of several hundred feet. The energy of heaven and earth surged, affecting the ground of the arena. Debris flew everywhere. Even the disciples on the spectator stands at the edge of the arena had to activate their protective aura in fear. Spiritual treasure. This Yin Fenghan really has a spiritual treasure. Powerful. The disciples on the spectator stands who had just guessed that Yin Fenghan had a spiritual treasure exclaimed in shock. Little brat, this was originally the trump card that I, Yin Fenghan, used to become famous in the new talent competition of the Xuanwu Empire and enter the 100 Empire ranking. But you, forced me to reveal it in advance. This is enough for you to be proud of. Today, at this moment, I will use your blood to refine my spiritual treasure, 9 Heavens Thunder Sword. Die. With the sword in his hand, Yin Fenghan's aura instantly soared countless times. Following his disdainful words, the sword stabbed out. Boom! The brilliant sword light carried a pressure that could destroy the heavens and the earth as it pressed down towards Qianhao from all directions. The entire martial arts practice field erupted with gasps and exclamations. Helian Wuxi's small face instantly turned pale, and her delicate body trembled. Mo Yui's expression was also extremely nervous. Huang Qi, Fang Qing, and Yunfian all clenched their fists nervously and held their breaths. The other disciples of the Zhenyuan kingdom, at this moment of glory and disgrace, were also extremely nervous. They broke out in a cold sweat for Qianhao. No one thought that Yin Fenghan actually had a spiritual treasure, and the aura emitted by this spiritual treasure was absolutely beyond everyone's imagination. First update. Can you give me a monthly vote? Today, it's still 0. I don't even have a single vote. If you like this work, you are welcome to come to Qidian. Come to give me a recommendation vote or monthly vote. You're tuning in to the Wang Lin's Journey YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.